Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome back to Rewind Room, the nostalgic podcast where we go back in time and take a look at what life was like before we got really commercialized and before a lot of things just changed. Going forward, and before we got into the digital age. Obviously, do not be mistaken, we love the time era we live in, but we always just love looking back just for a little bit because it brings us so much joy and just reminds us of those times when we just had a really great time and we were just able to have a lot of fun and just a really great era. My name is John Cody, and today I am joined with my wonderful co-host Ramona Mejia. Ramona, how are you doing today, my friend?
What is up? How are you? I'm doing great. I'm especially excited for this topic just because this is just it just took up so much of our childhoods,
Did
malls, department stores, hangout hubs, big box giants, all of those things.
Oh yeah,
Whether they took over the commercials that you watched or how you spent your Saturday mornings with your mom, whatever, they were a
absolutely.
huge part of our lives, and they might have been a huge part of yours too.
Absolutely. I mean, that was probably one of the biggest things is the fact, that these are the places where we spent so much time. These are the places where, we would go hang out, instead of nowadays being at home inside playing video games, which don't get me wrong, we did that as well. But back in the day, we actually, it's just one of those things where it's like, before you could get that game, you had to go to one of these places to get
Hmm.
said game. So
Yep.
that was another big part of the experience when it comes to that as well. But I think also, probably what was so cool also was the fact of the matter that, you know, it kind of got people outside. It got people to be more social. People really had to interact a lot more. And now with things like, Amazon and, online shopping now, it kind of has taken that away from the equation. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that in a bad way because obviously I do see the benefits to online shopping and such because as I am myself. I do that as well. I have to shop often, online for certain things. And even, then, it could be hard to find the store. But I think it was just such a big part of the culture that, when you look back on a lot of these stores and big box giants and malls, you just kind of can't help but smile and be like, there was one time a hub where we could all just go hang out, browse, and we didn't even have to buy anything. We just have
No,
fun.
absolutely. And these places were uh they were paid their respect and also just given homage through different media forms. Like I'm thinking about like how big malls were. You see that prevalent in movies like Fast Times at Ridgemont High,
Sure.
Chopping Mall, the B horror movie. You just see a lot of
Phantom of the
examples.
Mall, Eric's Revenge.
You see it in
Sorry, I had to
every
get that.
facet of our media intake. And now a mall is a place that you go to because it's not available on Amazon or something like that,
That
or
is
because
true.
you want to try it in person. A mall is now plan B, unfortunately.
No, really it is. And it's really sad also to see a lot of shopping malls are being closed now
Yes,
and
yes.
being destroyed. And I'm always a big advocate for malls and in-person shopping. And again, like I said just a few minutes ago, I absolutely understand the convenience of online shopping. I do online shopping
I do
myself.
too.
Oftentimes, sometimes that's the only way you can get really what you absolutely want. But at the same time, I do feel there was something lost with losing, malls and
Yep.
big box chains. And obviously, we do still have a good variety of department stores, but they have definitely changed over time and they don't really feel like they have that charm that they did, maybe
Yeah.
15, 20 years ago.
And before we get into the nitty gritty of the subject matter this
Yes.
in this podcast, I just also want to give praise to how we grew up in a time where a mall was also a center for teens to just be teens, to
Yes,
hang out, to grab some food, see a movie, walk around, window
absolutely.
shop. Now I don't really see that. Maybe I'm not looking in the right places, but it makes me sad to not see a bunch of prepubescent kids deciding over what pretzel to buy with the $10 their parents gave them, or
Low key.
people watch, something that a lot of people nowadays probably won't ever have to deal with anymore.
No, for sure, absolutely. It's just one of those things where I feel like back when we were young, it was one of those things where the mall was like the central hub of kind of a hangout because not
Mm-hmm.
only did you have a lot of shops to go and browse, you had a food court, you
Mm-hmm.
had an arcade. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I can't even begin to tell you how much time I spent in our mall's arcade. Like it was wild.
Yeah, I
And
couldn't agree more.
and whatnot. And you had different places that you could go. It wasn't all just stores and whatnot. There was always something fun. And even when you look at stores like Walmart had McDonald's back in the day,
Yeah.
Target had a lot of these places. And yes, you do still see, Walmarts do sometimes have Subways, Targets have Starbucks, and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. But like, I think it was just a little bit different because they really catered to that in-person experience so much. They're kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
well, you can shop and grab a bite. So it's two birds in one stone. It's kind
Yeah.
of how they approached it. And I think they still approach it that way to a good extent today, but I think it's a very different way that they approach it because back in the day it was like, oh, get a bite to eat because most people when they go out and shop, one of the things on their list was we need to get something to eat. And so they figure you
Mm-hmm.
can get one or the other. Now most of the time people just want something quick. They want a coffee,
Mm-hmm.
maybe just a little something to hold them over. So that's why I think Starbucks and Subways are big now because it's like you can do that and it's quick. It's in your hand, and you don't have to do a whole lot. And a coffee, obviously, you can just browse a store while sipping coffee.
Oh
So,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, malls also had this uh it was like this tradition, and it was unspoken that if a new storefront was going to come, whether it be food or whether it be just a department store or what have you, it was something that you had to look forward to. And now
Yeah.
in this day and age, if a store is going to a mall, it's like, oh, they're really trying hard not to fall under.
Yeah.
Or it's an obscure store that you've never heard of that is there because the rent is cheap because no one wants to be at the mall nowadays, you
Exactly.
know?
And it's really sad to see because really the
Mm-hmm.
only stores that are making it in malls now are places like J.C. Penney, Macy's,
Dillard's.
Dillard's,
Yeah.
a lot of those places, you don't even see Sears anymore. I remember when Sears was like
No.
the biggest, part of the mall. Like, I remember there was
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know if you remember this, but like there was like at times when you'd go to like a Sears, that was the biggest part of the mall
Oh
oftentimes.
yeah. No, I
Like
mean, kids
Sears and
will
Macy's.
never Sears and Macy's is
Yeah.
exactly, like, kids will never experience nowadays, at least, as much as we did and as much as our parents did, getting out of school, going to the mall and walking around the Sears appliances with your friends. Like, kids probably nowadays can't fathom the idea of walking around a department store to, like, jump on the beds or
Exactly.
to try out the new race car thing at the Radio Shack. Kids will never
Yeah.
be able to wrap their heads around something so concrete that was established as a custom, for a lot of us. And then after that, like we talked about last episode, would go rent a movie after that and get a pizza at home.
All the while trying to avoid the store's manager at the same
Or
time,
this
might
the
I
mall
ask.
security.
Or the mall security guard, yeah,
Yeah.
because you have to figure like a lot of things like jumping on the bed, doing that stuff. Like you technically weren't supposed to be doing it, but
Oh
like
yeah.
we did it anyways.
No, the
And
amount of times we would hack into, and for lack of a better word, hack into the laptop system at a computer store
oh yeah.
and play music that we chose on the loudspeakers, and then
Oh,
like have a giggle and then run away.
oh, do I have stories? And we're gonna get into some of these in this episode too. So I'm really excited for this. I think we got a good foundation, and I think we're gonna have a good episode. I think we're gonna have a
Yeah,
great episode.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So, the one thing, I found so interesting. So I just want to talk about this for a second. Basically, when I think of department stores, a lot of people think of places like, Walmart, Target,
At one
places,
point, Kmart.
Kmart. Yes, a lot of places like that. And, the thing with department stores, I feel like is, you know, they really were and still are kind of the central hub of what kind of encompasses everything, if that makes sense. So like
Mm-hmm.
when I think of department stores, I think of places like Sears. I think of
Mm.
places like Montgomery Ward. Obviously, I'd never been
Oh
into
yeah.
Montgomery Ward, but just places like that. And the reason being is because they were more of the homeowners department stores, if that makes sense. Like they sold everything from tools to clothes to appliances to just everything that you needed for your daily view. Whereas places
Yeah.
like Walmart and Target and Kmart catered to that as well, but they also catered to more of the, kind of a home in experience. So it was more of the, discount department store, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and whatnot. And a lot of people also ask me too, they say, does that include grocery stores? And the reason I don't really include grocery stores, I don't know how you feel about this, Ramona, is because grocery stores for me are kind of just their own thing, and grocery stores have just always been there, and grocery stores are more of a necessity place, whereas I feel like department stores are more of kind of a convenience place, if that makes sense.
Oh
And
yeah, no, you absolutely, without a doubt, you circled into what I was going to say with your last statement.
awesome,
One
appreciate.
is convenience, because if you need something, you know where you're going to go,
Yeah.
and that's either the big names. But you can go to pretty much any grocery store and
Yep.
find pretty much the exact same things. You have
Yep.
your dry food, you have your produce, you have your this, you have your that. Whereas every department store was sort of different into how they catered to their communities.
Absolutely. And the thing is, too, when you look at grocery stores, it's more of just looking who has the best deals, where department
Mhm.
stores, it's who's the most reliable, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You have people being concerned with brands when you go to department stores. You know, you have people who are super into either like LG washing machines or G&E or this and that. Whereas when you go to a grocery store, it's not as you don't see it as much. You don't see this
Mhm.
collective need for ease and accessibility, whereas like a grocery store, it's literally just laid out for you. It's not an experience, really. It's just something that
Exactly.
it's just a part of your daily life. And
Mhm.
in a department store is like something you look forward to, or at least something you would look forward to at the end of the week or when you needed something.
Absolutely. And the thing is too, when I think of department stores, there's so many that I can probably name and think of, but the two that really kind of stick out to me, and these are the two that really I kind of um picked was I picked Walmart and Kmart because those are the two
Oh,
big
great options. Yeah.
names out there. Obviously Sears is up there as well, but I'm gonna wait to get into Sears until we start talking more about malls, because Sears was more of a mall store, if that makes sense,
Gotcha.
and
Yeah.
was more associated with malls, and Sears was a whole different experience too. And obviously I can talk about J.C. Penney and Dillard's, but again, I feel like those are more mall stores. So I'm mostly keeping it to the department stores that mostly catered to the basic home living, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Okay.
So Walmart and Kmart were both really interesting in their own way. Both of them were department stores that were designed basically to allow people to get the things they needed, and they catered to everything. They had, anything from basic home goods to a pharmacy to being able to get, just over the counter meds like ibuprofens and, acetaminophen, Tylenol, stuff like that. They had things that, you could get for home use. I know our Kmart actually had some tools, believe it or not. The
Yeah.
Kmart that we had, my dad bought many a tool, some of which he still has to this day from a Kmart. And it's really impressive to see the selection they had to offer. And of course, both also sold video games, both sold fun stuff, televisions, all these other things. And
Yeah.
it's just really interesting. But when I look back at both Walmart and Kmart, I came in the last era of Kmart's era. I don't know about you. You've been to Kmart, I'm sure, before, right?
I have, yes.
Okay, I figured, yeah, yeah. But I think both of us kind of came toward the end of Kmart's life, unfortunately, because obviously Walmart
Yeah.
still exists. We all know about that, but it's a very different experience now going to Walmart than it was about 20 years ago.
No, we absolutely. I mean, just to
Mhm.
I mean, to add to what you're saying, moreover, you could get literal guns at Walmart. You could get a lobster if you wanted. You could get
Mm.
and I'm not talking about like, oh, you go into the butcher and there's like that seafood section. No, there was a big tub of live sea creatures that you could choose to take home
Mhm.
with you. They had at times some Walmarts had restaurants inside of them. They had photo sections where you could get your photos developed while also being right next to the pet section where you could get a pet. And then, like, if you want an AK-47, you just go, to the next aisle or whatever. Walmart was literally
Mhm.
the everything answer back in like the 80s and 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, well, some Walmarts actually still do carry guns, believe it or not. But the only guns that they carry now are like shotguns, really. They don't
Yeah,
they don't
yeah.
they don't they don't carry any of the crazy stuff that they used to, and I don't think they have handguns either anymore. They used to
No,
have
yeah.
handguns as well.
You could get pretty much anything. You could get your fishing license. You can get a prom dress at Walmart. You can
Yeah.
get your wedding dress at Walmart. You could get your refrigerator, I think, in the backlogs of Walmart. You could get a
Yeah, low
flat screen
key.
TV. Like literally anything you could think of that was not in a way based towards just adults or whatever,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
you could find.
No, straight up, straight up. I'm also glad you brought up the lobster tanks as well, because I remember these things when I was a kid.
Oh
Because a
yeah.
lot of people question me and they're like, dude, are you really that old? Because like oftentimes they see that as like a thing from the 90s. I'm like,
We are
no, that
that
was
old.
yeah, we for one, we are that old, yes. But number two, I'm like, that was also a thing in the early 2000s, the lobster tanks.
Oh yeah.
And I remember when I would go in there, like when you get to, and the thing is, back in the day, Walmart for us didn't really have a whole lot of a, didn't really have a big food section, if that makes sense. It's not like it is now
No.
where you
No.
have the super Walmarts that are
Hmm.
half grocery store, half department store.
So
Y-
back in the day, it used to be Walmart department store and Walmart neighborhood market. And those were
Yes,
two separate entities. The neighborhood market was the grocery store up until the superstores started combining both of them.
yes, exactly. And so Walmart actually was kind of split like that because back in the day when I used to go to Walmart, all they would have food wise is just, like chips and
Yeah.
snacks and,
Yeah.
frozen foods,
Hmm.
occasionally too and whatnot. But oftentimes they would not have like produce. They would not have a butcher
Yeah.
block. They would not have a deli, a delicatessen. They would not have a
Hmm.
bakery,
Yeah.
and whatnot. But you could get basic food things at a Walmart. One of the things I
Yeah.
remember when I was a kid, I was a big hound of animal crackers. I still kind of am,
Oh
honestly.
yeah.
And my parents, low key, because when I'd go in Walmart, my parents, I could never understand it. They love to spend hours in Walmart looking through stuff, looking for things, getting basic things and whatnot. And I oftentimes would get really cranky if I did not get a snack or eat something. So my parents would grab some of those Barnum animal crackers, the little box with the little string on it,
Yep.
and
Those
they'd
were
be
the
like,
best.
and then they would ring it up really quick at the register and say, "Have at it."
That was me with Cracker Jacks.
Yeah, and whatnot. And then there was one time we went into the store, and I can't remember if I was fussing or what was going on, but like I go into Walmart and I just could not eat. And my mom finally just opened it up right in the middle of the store, grabbed a box of animal crackers, let me eat it. And I freaked out because I thought we were getting in trouble. And my mom says, I'm gonna pay for it anyhow. So you might as well just eat it. So that was another big thing back in the day. People didn't really make a fuss if you did big things like that. They'd just be like, hey, just remember to ring it up when you leave.
No, absolutely. I think that and you're I know for a fact you're going to touch upon this later, but there was
Hmm.
also a shift in I guess life perception and also just emotion because you would go into one of these stores and you would be greeted by the nicest person. You'd be given like a
Yes,
sticker with a smiley
absolutely.
face and like everyone seemed so carefree. I don't know if that was
Hmm.
because it was a skewed version of how I viewed things as a child. I'm not sure, but it just seemed like things were just so simple back then. And now it feels like everyone is miserable doing their job. And
Hmm.
I mean, I get it. minimum wage. I understand living situations in the United States specifically. I understand that. But there was just this charm that when we were children, you would go into one of these stores and it would feel like you were going into Disneyland, for lack of a better term, you know?
Hmm. And I think also at the time too, people weren't really as stressed as they are now. You
Oh
didn't
yeah, yeah.
have a lot of, and I don't want to get into politics or anything, but like you didn't have the inflation like we have now. You didn't have as, crazy of a hard time as a lot of people are having because a lot of things now
Oh
are
yeah.
extremely expensive and people are now struggling just to keep up, and sometimes even the basic 9 to 5 isn't sometimes cutting it
Oh
anymore.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think it's really tough too. And I think back then, a job at Walmart could support you.
Yeah.
It could,
Mhm.
it would be enough to be able to put food on the table and to have a place to live. Whereas now it's a little bit tougher. And now some of these people who are working at Walmart are also working 2, 3 other jobs because they're
Yeah.
still trying to make ends meet,
Or
and
they're
I think,
working 40 to 60 hours at Walmart and they despise
yeah,
it, therefore
that
they
too.
take it out on their customers.
That too, and like there's also just I've noticed a lot of people, and I'm not trying to throw flack at any of our generation because I do think there are good people still, and I think that there's still a lot of great people, but I also noticed that there is this stigma that like a lot of the time people who now work at places like Target or Walmart look at it as like, okay, I'm only going to be here for a short amount of time just while I'm in college, just while I'm trying to get
Yeah.
started, and then they kind of look at it as kind of like, this is a temporary thing for me, so they're just there to say like I'm just here to clock in, get my paycheck, do what I got to do, and then leave. Whereas I feel like back in the day, we still had that. Do not get me wrong. I'm not saying that that's changed, but
Yeah.
I think people kind of had that also that mentality of like, you know what? I don't really like my job, but at the same time, I don't have anything else. I might as well go full send with it. I might as well
Well,
try and make the best of it as I can
yeah.
and give off that good vibe. If I'm gonna be that door greeter, I'm gonna be the nicest door greeter I can. You
Absolutely.
know?
And then you see also sort of this juxtaposition of age when it comes to, like you're saying, the youth that has a lot going for them, quote unquote, and this is just
Mhm.
a temporary phase in their life that'll soon lead them to other ventures in life. But you also see people in their like 70s and 80s trying to get by
Yeah,
working the same jobs as younger kids, and back
yeah,
then you didn't, at least it wasn't as noticeable, the
sure,
the age
sure,
gap between the two. There were more middle-aged people when I was a kid, from what I remember. And
true.
now, the person bagging my groceries is like hitting 80 and I feel horrible about it.
It
I'm like,
and
wait,
it is, yeah.
you
And
know?
the thing also too that's sad is a lot of these people are retired now,
Oh yeah.
and now because of the way things are now, sometimes people can't really afford to retire, sadly, so when
No,
they do retire
unfortunately, yeah.
from their career, they end up working at places like Walmart, like
Yeah.
Target, like these other places just to try and get the little extras.
Yeah. So the overall vibe completely changed given, like you were mentioning, John, like recession, just political state of things, social and
Mhm.
socioeconomic state of things,
Mhm.
geopolitical, all of that
Yeah,
literally changed how we even just go to Walmart, and how we're
exactly.
treated at Walmart. Like back in the day, you could expect to be helped by somebody, and now it's an automated self-checkout
Oh,
machine
excuse me.
that, accuses you of stealing every 2 seconds, you
Straight
know?
up. And it's also sad too because some of those machines and stuff I feel take away from what the jobs that could have been there for
Mm-hmm.
some of the other people, and
Absolutely.
obviously this is a whole nother discussion as
Oh
well
yeah,
because
it's a double-edged sword for
it
sure.
is a double-edged sword because I mean it is convenient, and yes, they do have lots of people working those self-checkout machines because people are going to get confused, the machine's not going to work right, and then they're going to
Hmm.
need somebody to come over and figure it out. But I feel like also, when, back in the day, when you'd line up for things too, and you would do the checkout and everything, it was a whole nother different experience. It just
Hmm.
was because a lot of the time, you had the conversation, and again, I think a lot of it too is the fact of the matter that, when you would go in, and stuff, like you said, you always had this feel of like, good energy in the air. The people
Mm.
were smiling, "Hello, how are you doing?" How is, et cetera, et cetera, and then they're checking you out, and they're just really friendly. If you got your kid with you, sometimes they're kidding around with you, having fun and whatnot, and I don't know if you remember back in the day, Walmart used to always check receipts before you left. Do you
Oh
remember
yeah, and
that?
then they'd give you a yellow sticker too if you were a
And
kid.
they give you a yellow sticker. I had so many yellow stickers from the times that I would go to Walmart as a kid.
Oh
It was
yeah.
wild. And another part I also loved about it too was um whenever they would do the receipt, obviously they had the little highlighter to mark and say that, yeah, you're good, everything's here. And that's obviously because, people as time went on started to try and get crafty with shoplifting
Yeah.
and stuff. But there was one time this lady, I got a funny story to tell you. So there's this one time, the guy over in the corner, he was a young guy. He was a college guy, probably about like, I would say 24, 25 at the time. And the lady tells me, ask him to draw a unicorn on your receipt because he'll do it. And little did I know that she was basically saying that obviously to get back at her coworker for just fun between coworkers, kind of like, hey,
Oh
hey,
yeah,
go go
yeah.
go 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 tell him to do that. And so I do. I tell him to do that, and he's like, and he looks at her, and he's just like, you. And I was just like, at first I thought it was at me, but of course now I know it was at his coworker, and he did.
Yeah.
He drew it for me, and he was really cool, and he did a good job. I was like, wow. But basically, but that was the vibe back then too, is like, you wouldn't get people like that, upset or whatnot, because nowadays they would just flat out refuse to do it, I feel like.
Yeah, I think now at least certain classes in the United States, they're overworked and they're tired and they don't have the emotional or cognitive energy to be able to play around like that. Whereas back in the day, ignorance is bliss.
For real, absolutely. And I remember the interior of Walmart too. It was all white. It wasn't any of this like, combined different colors, if you
Oh
remember.
yeah. Oh yeah. It was all white, blue,
Yep.
and yellow.
White, blue, and yellow, absolutely. And also, do you remember the blue plastic bags with the smiley
Blue
faces on
packed.
them?
Yep, yep. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
The
I
Walmarts that I used to venture to, the second you walked through the entrance, there would be a photo studio to your right and then like a McDonald's. So if you wanted to get
Mhm.
family portraits, you'd go to the studio thing. And then if you wanted to go shopping, you'd just walk around the McDonald's. And it was all in just the McDonald's.
Yo, and the
Or it was
McDonald's.
the Walmart, excuse me.
You're good. You're good. I know exactly where you're coming
Yeah.
from. No, for real. But the cool thing about that too was, like I said, they catered to the fact of the matter that, they realized that people are gonna want to shop and they're gonna want to get a bite to eat. Why not
Oh
get
yeah.
both? Because most people love McDonald's. And that was back in the day when McDonald's still had the dollar menu too. So
Oh yeah.
even if you couldn't afford the whole Big Mac and fries deal, you could still go in there and get like a quarter pounder or something off the dollar menu and just munch on it while you're shopping.
Yeah, absolutely. Or, you tell your husband, "Hey, stay with the kids in the play area. I'm going to go do some shopping." And then the wife goes off and does some shopping and the
Yep.
dad's there with the kids playing in the play area.
Exactly. Yeah, no, for real. It was cool. It was really cool that, they had those options too, to where it's like, you can go shop, get what you need to get done, but yet you don't have to have kids going, I'm bored the entire time,
Or, "Can I
either.
get that? Can I get that? Can you buy me that?"
I was the worst at that. I am not even joking. Like, I was the worst because every time I'd hit the toy aisle, I'd always want something, and my folks would always, there were many a time they had to say no, and I completely get it now. But at the time, I was the fussiest kid. And then also, I remember when they had. Do you remember when they had whole areas dedicated to having like books as well? And they had like, okay, let me
I
paraphrase that
think
again.
so.
So like when I was young, Walmart had a whole section of children's books and it spanned 2 aisles.
Wow, okay.
And
Yeah.
That's where I got a lot of my childhood books. Like, I grew up with a lot of Dr. Seuss books
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
and P.D. Eastman books. So, like, obviously, a lot of those books came from Walmart. If I'm being honest, like some of them, I think even still have the old Walmart stickers on them.
Oh
Um,
wow,
I
okay.
wish I had one to show y'all, but I don't this week. Don't have any examples, which is probably a good thing. But because I'll find too many of them. But on the other note, the thing with Walmart, I think too back in the day was they truly lived up to what they meant, the low price,
Oh yeah.
and that was the whole thing about Walmart was they were marketed as a discount store to the point where it's kind of like, what you can get over at Target or you can get over at another place you can get here, but for cheaper.
Yeah, the price matching was great, and it's still pretty great actually when you put it up against Amazon and Target. You can still do some pretty good price matching at Walmart.
You can, and I definitely think that there's a lot of just good stuff there. But but it's funny. Walmart's kind of now turned into something very, very different, and we've already touched upon a couple of those with the customer service and with just kind of the whole vibe of the place. But also now, I think, as you know, Walmart is also a place where a lot of really, really, for lack of a better term, stupid things happen as
Oh my
well.
God,
I
yeah.
think you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, a part of me also feels like it was like a ploy done by Target marketing to make it seem like you were less than if you shopped at Walmart. A lot of it
Maybe.
also had to do with how people marketed what Walmart was. You know, when you think of Target, you think of like this pristine place where like you go if you have a Starbucks in hand and you have like the latest sandal brand on. And then Walmart is a place that like the truck drivers and the lowest of the low go, at least when it comes to like how pop culture has viewed Walmart in the recent years. You know,
Mhm.
there isn't a meme for Target people, but there's a meme for Walmart people.
Oh, there is 100%, but also I will say there is some truth to this too because when I was in Walmart, maybe about I want to say maybe a month ago. I'm not even joking. This was recent when this happened. I go into Walmart. It is kind of late at night, and Walmart sadly now is not 24 hours. Do you remember when Walmart was
Ugh,
24 hours?
that's how I spent most of my college nights, just going to Walmart at like midnight with my cousin.
Yep. That's cool. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because the thing is midnight is Walmart when they were 24/7, people could go in and get the things they needed whenever they needed it. It's kind
Whenever
of
they
like
needed.
it's kind of
Yep.
like you got the flu in the middle of the night, but you don't really need to go to the hospital, but you just want to get some sleep. Just go to Walmart and you can get
Go
day
to
and
Walmart.
NyQuil.
Hmm.
You can get what you need to get, and they're willing to fill prescriptions late at night too, which I think was cool. They had a pharmacist on standby 24/7.
You know, I've never used the Walmart pharmacy, but I might actually start using it because I heard it's really affordable.
I've never used it, but I bought some things there, like stuff that you can only get behind the counter, like stuff like Sudafed, because I
Gotcha.
get sinus pressure a lot, but they keep it behind the counter because too many people use it to make really stupid things
Oh, yes.
and
Yes,
whatnot.
yes.
So now Sudafed is not outside the counter; it's kept behind the counter now, and so that's the only thing I went to the pharmacy to buy was stuff that you just can't buy, in front of the counter. That's the only time I've used it, but I don't think I've ever gotten a prescription filled there. It's either been at my local pharmacy or it's been Walgreens.
Mm.
It's been one of
Uh,
those two.
it's interesting that you mentioned the thing about Sudafed being over the counter or not no longer over the counter now, or
Yeah. Yeah.
however you would say that.
No, no.
Um,
So yeah, it's not. It's Sudafed is kept behind the counter now
it's
most of the
behind the
time.
counter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
at
yeah,
least in
yeah.
Arizona it is.
Yeah, so another shift when it comes to the overall environment and experience that you would have into going to, say, an OG Walmart or an OG Target for, um, that's pretty much the only way that I can explain that in 90s, early 2000s, is that you didn't feel like you were in a prison. Now it sort of feels, at least, correct me if I'm wrong, for me at least, it feels like whenever I walk in, everything is behind some sort of gate or
Oh yeah,
behind some sort of shelf because people have a proclivity to, you know, take what's good.
to steal.
To steal, exactly.
Yeah.
And, uh it feels like I'm inconveniencing Walmart by being there, because
Yeah.
everyone's on edge. Everyone's like, "Oh, are they going to steal?" Or, Like baby formula is behind a gate,
Yeah.
deodorant is behind a gate, video
That's
games,
wild. That's wild.
video
Deodorant?
games, yeah,
That's
so many
wild.
things are behind gates. Heck,
Okay.
the Target, the super Target by my place, by my house right here in Tucson, has an on-site cop outside of it. Where
Oh
back in
yeah.
the day that wasn't the thing, and a lot of that has to
Yeah.
do with a lot of gun violence that's been going on, but also like
Yeah.
stealing. You know, I didn't
Stealing and
realize how big that got because as a kid, it felt like you know, it didn't feel like it was in your face.
exactly. And also when I'm going to come back to this point too of when I was just mentioning also, like when I said people do some really dumb things in Walmart, it's
Oh
also I
yeah.
feel like become a trend now to where people
Mm-hmm.
want to see how much they can get away with
Oh
inside of a
yes,
Walmart.
I'm not really a
And
fan of pranks like that. As much as I'll get a laugh out of them, I always feel bad for the service
Mhm.
workers because they're the ones who have to suffer with it.
I'm not gonna lie, and I'm sorry I have to admit this. I was that person at one time.
Really?
Yeah, and the only reason I say that, I was young, I was stupid, I thought I was cool stuff. I saw videos on YouTube, but I'm not that person anymore. Thankfully, I just go to the store, I shop, I get what I need, and I'm out.
So
So,
I think it also just depends on your level of mischievousness. I feel like you probably did more like innocent pranks where nowadays like they're destroying entire aisles
okay,
because
yeah,
like
that I cannot stand for. That I
they'll
will
like
not stand
they'll
for.
like tackle an aisle and like all the cans will fall down or they'll harass a worker. Like I feel like the pranks have just gone up a level that
Yeah,
it's not even funny anymore.
absolutely. That I will never stand for. I will never
Yeah,
stand for destroying a store. I will never stand for doing anything like that.
exactly.
It's stupid, It's just it is. It's just it. I can't even find words to really put it in perspective. But yeah, it's wrong. It's not cool, and I think it's wrong. But I think a lot of the stuff that I did was just Rickrolling Walmart, Rickrolling Best Buy. I'll explain a little bit what that means exactly. But basically, maybe get the closest I think I ever got to that level was the intercom.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like those are harmless pranks because they're not at anyone's expense. Like you're not having someone clean up after you, or you're not, embarrassing anyone or things like that. It's literally just innocent fun.
Mhm.
And the climate of the shopper experience now can be, I guess, it can be viewed through a TikTok or through an
Yeah.
Instagram,
Hmm.
uh, particularly the pranking ones, and you see how stressed everyone is in the videos, and you see how like unhappy everyone was, and that just wasn't the
Yeah.
case when we were younger.
No, exactly. I have seen some wild things though go down at Walmart. I'm not gonna lie. There was one time I saw some dude in Walmart. I'm not even joking when I say this. Dude had no shirt on. He was in a shopping cart. I'm not even joking when I say that. He was sitting in a shopping cart. I don't know who was pushing him. He was lubed up and he was just going through the store playing his little ukulele. And I'm like, what am I watching? What am I witnessing? He got kicked out probably like maybe a few minutes after that, but like still, I just was like, what am I watching? Like what
That's hilarious.
it
That's one of
was.
the most Walmart things I've ever heard happen.
Oh no. I was cracking up when I saw this happening. But no, he was playing his ukulele. I don't know what he was singing, but he was playing something. He's like "Dun, dun, 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 dun,
Oh
dun."
my
I'm just like
gosh.
yeah, and I'm not even joking like and he was bald too. So like I'm just looking at this dude like what? And
I mean, the stereotypes are there for a reason, I
I'm
guess.
trying not to crack up, but like yeah, that did happen at Walmart. I have seen that. So
Wow.
definitely interesting. But it's interesting. We've talked about Walmart for a bit, but I kind of want to I kind of want to talk about Kmart as well because Kmart was a very different experience than Walmart,
Oh yeah.
if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah.
Because funny enough, in my hometown of Flagstaff, um, Kmart was right around the corner from Walmart. I'm not even joking when I say that.
For my own context, do you mind telling me which Walmart?
The one over on Woodlands.
By campus?
Yes. By campus.
Where
Yes.
was the Kmart then?
Where the Coles
Was it
is.
where the Coles? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. It was so
Yeah.
secluded. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so but no, low key back in the day when Kmart was there, like that store was going wild. Like I
Wow, I
remember
bet.
because yeah, that well, Kmart is the first place that I saw the Nintendo 64.
Really? That's insane.
Yeah, because you had to figure that they were still selling that even when the GameCube became a thing.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
insane.
yeah. Kmart is the first place I saw a Nintendo 64. So that goes to show you how much time has passed. Yeah,
You
so
managed to roast yourself
I
in
did.
that one sentence. That's so
I
funny.
walked into that one. I walked
That is
right
so
into that
funny.
one. But basically no, but for real, it really shows just, how much time has passed because when you look back at that time, it was just one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm gonna go to Kmart. And the thing is you could get so much in Kmart. It was
Oh
wild,
yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
the things that you get. And also, I don't know if your Kmart had this. My Kmart had one of those those automatic horses outside that you like pay a quarter and you can
Oh
like
yeah.
yeah, that was
Even
always my
well, my Walmart had that too, actually.
Walmart had that. Our Walmart did
Yeah.
not have that, sadly. Our
Yeah.
Walmart did not have that, but low key the one that did was oh excuse me was Kmart, and that was always something I had to do when I was doing that,
Oh yeah.
and my folks would always be like, all right, John, here you go, you know excuse me and whatnots, but Kmart just had so many things, and like, not only could you just get house goods stuff there and all that whatnot. Again, you get food there, you get your basic needs, and actually, the best part about that was Kmart was also a place where you could do baby registry as well if you're gonna have
Oh yeah.
a baby. I believe that's where my parents registered when they were expecting me. So
Oh wow.
it goes to
Okay.
show you just how awesome. And Kmart was so chill with them too. Like they would allow them to adjust their orders, and like when people would go in, you didn't even have to really give a whole lot. You could just give a name and just say that, and they're like, "Oh, yep, we got them right here. There you go. You want to put them down for socks or something, diapers, whatnot? Okay, there you go. We got you on the list." And then you just pay the money for what you want, and then yeah, you get what you need and
For
whatnot. So,
uh how the stores were located where I live in Tucson and I was born and raised,
yep.
there was a Walmart and a Kmart pretty much a street away from each other. So
Oh, that's cool.
we would go to the Walmart mostly. But
Okay.
the couple of the few memories I have of Kmart actually were for specific reasons. They weren't just to go shop.
Hmm.
One of them was to find Halloween costumes because it was
Yep.
also a great place to get masks or affordable children's Halloween costumes if you didn't want to spend a pretty penny on the latest cartoon character that your child wanted to be over Halloween. So that was a reason why I would go to Kmart. But another reason would be on a random Sunday
Yeah.
sometimes, and this happened maybe 2 or 3 times in my life. My mom would tell us to get ready, and she'd have nice clothes ready for us. And it was because we were taking a family photo.
Yep.
And in the Kmart that we would venture to every now and then, they had a photo studio there too. And that's where we got a lot of our family photos done. So
Hmm.
Kmart was a shopping hub, but it was also a place to get professional portraits done, family
Oh yeah.
portraits,
Hmm.
pretty much everything under the sun, photography wise. And
Hmm.
that's one of the main uses that we used it for.
And Walmart also started to offer that later on as well
Hmm.
because my family
Yep.
did that as well. So, real quick, I got a funny story. So, when I was a kid, so my dad, before he does what he does now, was a security guard. I'm not gonna say where, just for the heck of it, or not for the heck of it, but just for privacy
Privacy sake.
reasons. Yeah, I don't know why I said the heck of it, but you guys know what I mean. But he worked as a security guard, and I remember I accidentally got into his spare set of handcuffs. And let's just say
Oh
my
gosh.
dumbass handcuffed myself pretty hard, and I didn't realize they're not like my play cuffs that have that little safety hatch. Like these ones don't
Yep.
come off.
Nope.
And so we had to go get pictures taken about maybe an hour later,
No way.
and my mother had to drive me all the way to my dad's work in order to break me free.
Mischievous, I swear.
And then we had to go get
Uh,
photos taken, and literally you can see like a little mark, I think, in the photo too of where I cuffed
if you
myself.
ever find that photo, please send it to me so we can post it on the Instagram.
Oh heck no, we're not posting that. We are not
I'll just
posting that
Photoshop
one.
one then.
We are
I'll
not okay.
Photoshop one.
What with just me with a cuff mark at like
Yeah,
5 or 6 years
exactly.
old? Oh
Exactly.
boy. But no, it was good
Visual
stuff.
representation.
Yeah, it goes to show just how smart of a guy John was when he was young. But
You were a kid. I would have done the same, except I would have done it to my ankle and my wrist. I'd be like
exactly.
with my leg over.
For sure, absolutely. But
But
no,
let's keep the
it's
ball
funny.
rolling though on talking
Absolutely.
about these department stores. I know we're getting excited over Walmart and Kmart, but those two
Yeah,
weren't
yeah,
the only
yeah.
ones
Let's.
dominating.
No, absolutely. There's plenty more out there. I can't think of some of them off the top of my head, but I think you probably can think of a few. Which other stores? I'm trying to think.
So three that I wrote down, two of which we'll keep talking more later on in the podcast
Sure.
or this episode, but three I wanted to touch upon that in some locations still exist, except for the last example.
Okay.
They sort of have changed over time, or they just completely don't exist. So the first one no longer exists, unfortunately,
Okay.
and it's Sears. And I know that you're going to touch upon
Sears.
this later, so I'm
Yep. Yep. Yep.
not. I'm just going to briefly go over it. In the 90s and early 2000s, Sears was actually still writing as the go-to place for everything appliance, tool, clothes, and holiday gift wise. So
Mhm.
that was the place to go if you needed virtually anything. So think of Walmart, but even bigger, like we were saying
Oh
earlier.
yeah.
So like walking into a Sears felt like you were entering this hybrid between a hardware store and a fashion retailer. So
Loki.
something similar to like J.C. Penney, which we'll talk about soon as well. They had craftsman tool sections, and they also had, funny enough, like a prom dress section. So your
I
dad
remember
can go
this.
and
Yes,
shop, and
I
then your daughter
remember.
can go and shop too.
Yep.
Even better though, Sears mailed people free catalogs where you could basically do like wish lists and stuff,
Hmm.
and that was a means of entertainment for a lot of families. Like I remember
Absolutely.
whenever we'd get mail, I'd open up the catalog and circle all the things that I knew that me and my family couldn't afford. But it was fun at the
All the
time, you
stuff
know.
on your Christmas wish list, I'm sure.
Exactly. And the department store, and this is funny in doing my research, it was defined as middle class practicality because it was reliable, affordable, and multi-generational.
Oh, really?
And
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
when you think about Sears, at least in our lifetime, we
Yeah.
only got like the ending cusp of it.
We did.
We didn't really realize how big it was culturally, and then in doing
Mhm.
the research, we realized that the loss of Sears was actually monumental.
It low key was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something
Well,
that we overlook.
and the thing about Sears too, I'm gonna bring this up. I'm glad you mentioned Sears. I can't believe I didn't think of Sears. I mentioned it earlier too, but
Mhm.
like it is a big one. But the thing with Sears too that I also loved was, um, it was kind of a thing for. They had something for everyone, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Obviously
literally.
yeah, they literally had something for everyone. And I remember like when they had everything on display too, from tractors to workout equipment to of course tools, like you said,
Hmm.
craftsman. My dad is a massive fan of craftsman tools. Like
Well,
like
yeah,
that's all he will buy. Like and I can see why craftsman is really well built. And with
quality.
the
Yeah.
yeah, and because Craftsman was owned by Sears, when Sears went under,
Whoa, I didn't know that.
Craftsman had to look for a new home, and it took a while before they found a new home. So
Wow.
yeah, it was, and the group that brought him out, in case anyone's wondering, is Lowe's. Lowe's now owns Craftsman.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
unfortunately, here in my neck of the woods, we don't have a Lowe's, so we don't get to see Craftsman a lot, sadly. But
Gotcha,
but
gotcha.
definitely miss them because I mean they do have a lot of good stuff quality wise. I have to
No,
agree.
yeah. Unfortunately, most Sears locations have since then closed.
Yes.
I believe they declared bankruptcy back in 2018, so a
Yeah.
lot of them have been pretty much stripped down and or completely demolished in their locations. And Jonathan mentioned this earlier, but you could mostly find them at malls. So if you're younger and you're walking through a mall and you see a big empty a space that seems like a department store would be there, likely chances are that a Sears probably was there at one point.
Low key, I mean, even here in Flag, as you know as well, you know where the Hobby Lobby is now?
Oh yeah.
That's where the Sears was.
When I moved there, the
Yeah.
Hobby Lobby wasn't open and it still had the
The
Sears
Sears writing.
sign.
Yeah, because it
Yeah.
was right around that time that the Sears closed as
Yeah.
well. And so yeah, no, it was wild. But yeah, no, that's where Sears was. And I remember that hub was just amazing. And I remember that, whenever I'd go to the mall, that was the first place that we'd always end up. We'd park on the side of Sears and then we'd go shop in Sears for a bit, go walk the rest of the mall, and then we'd end back right back at Sears again.
Now, when John says that Sears was literally for everything or for everyone, he means it.
Oh
There were
yeah.
clothes for
Hmm.
every age. There were appliances for women, appliances for men. There were toy sections for kids. And even better, and this is something that I have vivid memories of. Whenever there was a huge sporting event happening that was relevant to either the West Coast or Arizona
Hmm.
specifically, Sears would play it on every single one of their flat screens. So
Absolutely.
so you would have families gathered around the TV section watching the TV together. You know, like I remember during I think like the 2000 probably 10 World Cup or something like that.
Yep.
Everyone was sitting around
Oops, my
the
bad.
TV section in Sears watching it. And it was like,
Absolutely.
okay, the wives are doing their own thing, the kids are playing, and then all the husbands and the people who are into soccer were all, ventured around the
Yep.
TVs watching the
Yep.
World Cup. And you could see that in
Yep.
different sports too. You're shopping, but you could also take a break and like
Mhm.
indulge in a little bit of a of sports
Well,
entertainment.
the other thing about Sears too, if you remember as well, was um they would also, well, one thing I remember too was they would play the Super Bowl too. Whenever it was Super
Oh
Bowl
yeah.
Sunday, every
Mm-hmm.
TV had the Super Bowl going, and even the people the people working there would occasionally be around the TV section because they wanted to check the score,
Oh
like who's
yeah.
winning, who's doing this and whatnot. But
Absolutely.
Sears also had something that both Kmart and Walmart also had, but Sears really popularized. And I don't know if you ever heard of this. Do you remember when layaway was a thing?
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, how
Sears
funny.
was the one that really kind of kicked that. I mean, they weren't the ones who started it, but they were big pioneers in it as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah.
they aspired a lot of these other department stores to get layaway, because
Hmm.
oftentimes, that's how people were able to afford the big Christmas gifts that they were able to get people. You
Absolutely.
you
I knew
would,
people who started shopping for layaway Christmas back in like October,
yeah, low key. And then the
and they
next
would
thing
keep paying for
they
it.
yeah, because their kids would be like, "No, I want that set for Christmas or whatnot." And Sears also had a toy section as well at one point. I don't know
Yep.
if you remember that, but they had a toy section, and
Yep.
it wasn't just like little toys you could play around. They had board games. They
Board
had
games, the latest RC toys.
the
They
latest
had,
RC toys,
yeah.
all of that stuff. And so literally you could go into one of these places and say, "Hey, I want to put this on layaway." And then you put down a certain amount of payments, and then once you get it paid off, enjoy.
No, absolutely. And Kmart, I think it was Kmart, right before they declared bankruptcy, they did layaway, but you could take it away with you. You could
Mm-hmm.
take the
Mm-hmm.
object or the thing you purchased away with you and then just do the payments. Obviously, a lot of that had to do with trusting your customer,
Yeah.
but you see that nowadays through Afterpay or through whatever,
Credit, even now.
credit. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
No, it's wild because like when you look at a lot of those different things, you kind of look at like how are people getting all these crazy gifts and whatnot. It's because layaway was a thing.
Yeah.
You weren't forced to pay, $375 or 500 something dollars or $1,000 up front,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
could make those payments, at a certain rate, and you could still keep your life going, and you could still make the people you love happy.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And another store which was similar in respect but not in grand of a scale was J.C. Penney. And
Yes.
we're going to touch more about this in the mall
Yes.
section,
Yes.
but their stores anchored shopping centers and offered everything from jeans to literally prom dresses again, just like Sears, but
Get 'em.
JC Penney's definitely didn't how should I say it? It wasn't aimed at um the family experience. JC Penney's was
True.
mostly reliant on clothes shopping and
It was
accessory
it is a
shopping.
clothing store first and foremost. Like
Exactly.
you will not find washers and dryers in JCPenney. You will not
Yeah,
find flat screen televisions. You will not find a toy section. You will not
absolutely.
find tools, and
But the
stuff like
cool thing about JC Penney's though is that they stayed culturally relevant with the younger crowds.
Oh,
So
sure.
when I was growing up, all of their commercials were sponsored by like A-list celebrities. So you would have a bunch
Hmm.
of collaborations with A-list celebrities in specific clothing, um, uh,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word, clothing collaborations. You would have like say the Paris Hilton dress edition or the Ellen DeGeneres suits edition or the
Absolutely.
John Cena t-shirt. You would have a bunch of celebrity,
Yes.
crossovers with
Yes.
different clothing brands, and that was
Yeah,
really cool. That was
absolutely.
something that brought people back. But something that definitely kept people coming back were the back to school specials. It
Yep.
was almost like a ritual. The accessibility to clothing for teens, all the way to from children to teens to even the elderly. It expanded so much that you didn't really have to go to multiple stores, which made it appealing to a lot of parents who either had a lot of kids or had kids ranging in different ages, or if they wanted to shop for the entire family, J.C. Penney was definitely the place to go.
Sure.
They also had a catalog of household staple items through the 2000s, targeted to families and people who are into seasonal shopping. And then they sort of shifted gears, doing the whole school thing when they started talking more about wholesome family values. And
Hmm.
that's when you would see commercials of like kids jumping on beds and like happy families and
Yeah.
kids playing with their toys, and then mom with her nice dress and dad with his awesome sweater walking down the park. They really idealized the nuclear family.
Sure.
um and
100%.
and nowadays JCPenney still exists, but
Yeah.
it's really on the brink of just lack of extinction, to be honest. I
Yeah.
can't see it existing for the next 10 years, just because they did unfortunately file for bankruptcy back in 2020, and
I
they've
saw.
tried to since then reinvent themselves multiple times,
Mhm.
um, i.e., trying to aim their focus on fast fashion or
Yeah.
uh, selling things intended for luxury partnerships, or digital only things, and unfortunately, that just it hasn't beaten Amazon's convenience.
No.
So JC Penney's it's fighting for its life. JC Penney is fighting for its life right now, really.
It is,
Now,
and I think the big thing that's just keeping JCPenney going is the fact of the matter that it is a clothing store and clothing stores are still very relevant.
and you can
Um,
online shop.
and you
You
can
can online
online
shop at
shop
JC
as
Penney.
well. Yes, absolutely. And you can even order to the store. So in case you
Oh
don't
yeah.
want to, I mean, most people probably prefer to order to their house, but obviously it's probably cheaper to order to the store versus paying a shipping cost to your house,
Yeah, I mean it
and
also brings
whatnot.
the
But
customer back in too, so
and it
I
brings
can
the
see it to
customer
be a
back
good
into the
deal.
store, absolutely. But I still see at my mall there's still lots of people browsing JC Penney. It seems like there's still a demand for it to a good extent. I think most of its battle right now is more financially than it is convenient
That's
wise.
that's the thing, and we see stores like Sears, going under, and my next example has completely ceased to exist, and
Yeah.
one can't help but wonder if J.C. Penney will soon fall into that.
Yeah.
And my third example is Mervyn's,
Oh,
R.I.P. Mervyn's,
Mervyn's, yes. Rest in peace,
and
Mervyn's.
a bit more regional to the west and the southwest, but
Hmm.
Mervyn's was basically your go-to for pop culture dress
Hmm.
or anything to do with clothing. They had a very popular slogan back in the 90s, which I actually didn't recall because I had never seen it in the time that I was alive. But this was a very notable saying back in the day, for those people who enjoyed going to Mervin's all the time. And it was open, open, open.
Yep.
And
I remember that.
the late 90s ad featured a woman desperately waiting for the stores to open. And when I tell you Mervin's was packed when we were kids, it
Oh
really
yeah,
was.
it was.
That's why it took me by surprise that it closed. It was one of those places that on Black Friday it had a line. You know,
Oh
you don't
my
really think about
gosh.
clothing stores getting Black Friday deals, but like
Oh, they do.
this place was packed,
Hmm.
and one could say it's less flashy than Macy's, but also a little bit more laid back than Nordstrom. So the appeal was
Yep.
there for like the average middle class family, but
Hmm.
also as years went on, they started selling more affordable clothing, so you could get leather or even pleather at a good price, and that appealed to a lot of families, specifically during the back to school season as well. I know for a fact that's where I got my pants at Mervin's when I was a little kid. I don't know if you've ever been to a Mervin's, but all I can think of is the sound of the metal racks hitting each other
Yeah.
when your mom is just like sifting through clothes trying to figure out what you can wear. um Unfortunately, all Mervin store locations closed in 2008. Basically,
Hmm.
victims of the recession and just retail competition and the advent of Amazon and online
Yep.
shopping really
Hmm.
decimated the cultural need for or societal need for a Mervyn's. Have you ever
Yeah.
been to Mervyn's?
I've only been to Mervin's, I think, once or maybe
Okay,
twice. Our mall up here did not have a Mervin's in it.
gotcha.
But I think when I've been to the Valley, I have gone into Mervin's before, and I do remember they had some really cool stuff in there.
Yeah,
Especially like you said, clothing wise, especially geared toward the younger, more hip, side of
yeah.
things and whatnot. But no, I do remember Mervin's. I do remember going through there a couple times. I don't know if I ever bought anything from there, but I think the only time I've ever been there is if I've been down in the valley or in those kind of areas. But other than that, yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with Mervin's, but I do know the staple lift because I remember seeing the commercials. I
Oh
remember
yeah.
seeing all the advertisements for it, and I remember seeing so much when it comes to Mervin's. So no, for sure.
Well, actually, the Mervyn's that I used to go to as a child, the storefront is still there, and I believe the lettering is still there, minus the LED sign. So it's just the imprint of the letter itself. If
Yep.
I can find it, I'll definitely take a picture of that and post it on the Instagram
Oh, for
because
sure. I would love to
at
see
least
that.
in Tucson, for the Hispanic community,
Hmm.
Mervin's was huge. It was
Yep.
huge because it was more affordable than stores like J.C. Penney and Sears, but it
Oh yeah.
also had, brands that people recognized. Um, and I just also wanted to uh, give some final thoughts and an honorable mention. The honorable mention we actually talked about earlier in the podcast, and it was Kmart, which Mervin's definitely, when it came to competition wise, Target and Walmart, Mervin's was definitely the Kmart of the department stores, of the
Yep.
clothing department stores. You know, the one that was more affordable, the one that was appealing to middle class families without having a stigma of some sort of class righteousness.
Absolutely.
But these places were more than just retail spaces. They were, for at least in my family, my mother's ritual and her mother's ritual when it came to shopping.
Oh sure.
The act of going shopping together, looking through the catalogs, even just grabbing a cup of coffee to go walk around, big sale excitements, special trips to malls, things
Yep.
like that all shaped not only our wardrobes, but the rhythm in which our families lived their lives. And
Hmm.
in every episode, we talk about different things that molded our childhoods. And for a big fact, actually, department stores, and malls took up a huge part of our lives.
Absolutely, they did because I mean those are the places that we would go hang out. Those are the places that we would go and spend a lot of time in. Even and half the time, sometimes we weren't even there to buy. We just wanted to
No,
look.
just window shopping,
Just
really.
window shopping. Exactly. You just go in, you want to check out what's new, and you walk out, and then you don't have anything, but yet you had the best time of your life.
Yeah.
It's
And
like,
for those of you in the younger generation not familiar with the term window shopping, it's basically when you're online shopping and you put things in your cart and you don't plan on buying them.
yep,
you know?
exactly. Exactly. And for us, it was going into a store, maybe holding Game Boy in GameStop or
knowing dang well we were gonna put it
yep,
away before
even
we
though we
walked
knew we were
out.
gonna put it back before we walk
But
out,
the
or
hope was that our parents would see how sad we were, and then they'd just give it to us. Whether
half
or not
the
that worked just depended.
it didn't work 97% of the time in my
I
case.
know. No, no,
Um,
same, same.
but I mean, it would
Uh,
really depend and whatnot. But it was definitely cool. Department stores, regardless of online convenience, I think they'll always be relevant in some way. And I
yeah,
think the biggest reason is because, again, like I said, I'm going to come back to this point again, like I did with the video stores. People, I think, fundamentally desire tangible things at the end of the day.
I was
I
just about
mean,
to say that. I was
mhm,
just about to say
because
that.
here's the thing. Convenience, I can see why it wins most of the time because convenience is catering to the person. And
Yes.
obviously, as human beings, we like to be catered to. And so, obviously, convenience is usually going to win out. But I think in the long run, I think tangible wins because it's hard to go online and buy, let's say you want to shop for a shirt and like maybe the one I'm wearing right now, like a button up or something, and you find one online and you're like, okay, I select my size, and then you try it on and you realize, oh, wait, maybe this isn't the best fit. But yet you go into a department store like that, you can easily try on and know what you're gonna buy, and you can feel it, you can look at it, you can say, is this gonna feel good on
Yeah.
my person, and whatnot, versus where you go online, you gotta wait till they ship it to you, and if it's not right, you gotta ship it back and wait even longer before you can get what you absolutely need.
It's funny. I had to be very reflective this past weekend because, and I'm going to tell this story because I
Okay.
know a lot of people might be able to empathize, and I know for a
Sure.
fact I need to learn a little bit more empathy. But my
Okay.
my partner loves online shopping,
Sure.
and I've never understood it more so because I like you were saying, feeling it on me. I like to know that it fits me. I like to
Mhm.
know what I'm gonna look like literally when I have it on in the dressing room.
Yeah.
That's something that just, that's the only thing I can wrap my head around.
Oh, likewise.
But
Yeah.
she prefers a different shopping experience than I, and that has taken me a lot longer to understand. Mostly because she will online shop, it'll come to her a couple days later, it won't fit most of the time, and she'll send it back and do that over and over again.
Oh,
Whereas
really?
me, somebody who's a very concrete buyer, someone who, like you were saying, desires something tangible, I will go to a store, try it on, know that I like it or know that I won't, and then that's where the transaction ends. Whereas if I feel like if you are an avid online shopper, it's constantly this push and pull of, am I getting what I want? No,
Yep.
okay, let me try again. Am I getting what I want? No, let me try again. Whereas something like you were saying as tangible as going into a storefront and trying it on, to
Mhm.
me, takes out the middleman of like figuring out, when it's going to come, if I'm going to like it, you know. And I feel like a lot of people in our generation prefer that mode of shopping, whereas you and I definitely prefer
Sure.
walking through the doors and taking in the full experience, getting it done right
Exactly.
then and there.
Exactly. And I think that's just probably also, it could just be the fact of the matter that I'm very picky as well. So,
Oh, me too. Yeah.
obviously I want to know right then and there, is it going to fit? Is it going to work out?
Hmm.
And the convenience of it too is shipping, you got to wait at least like a week or so before it's going to get to you. When you go
Yeah.
into a
If you don't
store,
have Prime, yeah.
if you don't have Prime, yeah, but even Prime sometimes you got to wait a couple days, especially if
No,
it's on
you're
back
right.
order or something.
You're
But like,
right.
with shopping off the, well, I don't want to say off the rack, because sometimes I mean you do sometimes have tailors and places at places like
True.
Macy's or Dillard's or Men's Warehouse or more upscale places like that. But
Yes.
most of the time when you buy in a store like that, you take it home that very day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then if you have any problems, you can just go right back into the store and exchange it, and they're more than happy to help you.
Now, something that I know online shopping can't do,
Yeah.
or that at least I wouldn't trust in a way that I would going into a store, is like, say if I needed a refrigerator.
Yeah.
I'm not going to know if I want it until I'm actually seeing it, opening the handles, feeling the stainless steel or
Hmm.
whatever, feeling
Exactly.
every little sensory thing that I would be feeling at home.
Yep.
if I were using it at home.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, if you shop online for it, sure, that's fine. But for me, it doesn't fulfill my questions or my needs when it comes to discerning if I need it or not. Like, sure, I can read reviews online, and that's very helpful.
Yeah.
But how am I supposed to know that for lack of a better word, vibe with the refrigerator unless I'm touching it? You know what I mean?
It's the exact same thing you can say about a washing machine, for instance. I
Absolutely.
mean, it's
Absolutely.
kind of like, it's kind of like, is this washing machine going to be fit to me? Am I going to be able to get easy access to it? Am
Yeah.
I going to be able to, what's going to be like when I open the door? How does the door open? What is it going to be
Mm-hmm.
like when I throw my clothes in, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And so I think it's that also plays a big factor into it as well. Or same with a TV, you buy a
Mm-hmm.
TV online, like on Amazon, buy a 50-inch flat screen. I mean, most people I think still like to go to stores for those, but I mean, still, and you don't know what it's going to look like. You can't measure out a lot of
Exactly.
stuff. You go into a store like Sears or even Best Buy now, you get that experience of like this
Mm-hmm.
is what it's going to look like. This is what it's going to feel
100%.
like. And this is exactly the product I'm going to buy. And then you can make the educated decision at that time, do I want to buy or not? And
Yeah,
you
no,
can make that
exactly.
decision right up front without having to say, did I order the right thing? You know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why also, besides their um accessibility and sort of the ease of making the furniture, that's one of the
Yep.
reasons why IKEA is still like king here,
Yes,
well, all over the world, really,
absolutely.
because people desire that tangible experience of where you go somewhere and you see and feel the product that you're going to buy.
Yep. And
They
I
perceive what will be in their future.
Absolutely. And the other thing I was going to say too about IKEA, I think the other thing that brings people in is the fact that you can also eat there
Oh yeah.
and it's not just a
Well,
McDonald's or anything, it's their own thing.
well, IKEA is a world of its own that we could have multiple episodes
We
on
could
on why
probably
it's
do a full
amazing.
episode on just IKEA,
Multiple.
honestly.
No, multiple episodes. We could do one entire
Multiple.
episode just on like the
The f
ease of it.
Exactly. Do one on the ease of it, one on the convenience of it, one on the
Yeah.
food, one on
Oh
all
yeah.
these other things. Yeah. Yeah, that would be wild. That would definitely be wild. But
Oh,
you make some really good points in a lot of the of what you're bringing up. And it's stuff I haven't really thought about also. Because I'm a very tangible person myself, but at the same time, I think it goes beyond just the fact of I can hold it, I can look at it, and the aesthetic value. It's am I getting my money's worth,
oh yeah.
And that's the most important aspect when you go shopping for stuff like this because at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to be stuck with that. And if you
Hmm.
are going to be stuck with it, you might as well get something that you damn well know is going to work.
Absolutely. I can't tell you the amount of times I've purchased something on Amazon and I hate the fabric.
Same.
And had I, read a little bit more into it or have, some sort of frame of reference to how every single fabric feels, all of that means nothing versus me going
Yeah.
into the store, putting it on, realizing I don't like it, and then just shifting gears into finding
Just
something
putting it
else.
back on the rack. Yeah.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
whatnot. And that's why, when I go clothes shopping, I still like to do as much in person as I can because like you said, with the feel and whatnot, I'm very sensitive as somebody on the autism spectrum. I am very
Myself
sensitive
included,
to,
yes.
yep, exactly. Little fun fact you just learned about us if you haven't known that, from the pilot episode. But if you haven't,
True,
go back
yes.
and listen to the pilot episode if you haven't.
Yeah.
But just had to put that out there. Didn't mean to put you on the spot like that, but
No, no, no.
with me, I'm very sensitive to the feel of my clothes, if you know what I mean. I
Yeah,
really hate
myself
the
too.
itchy style of clothing, so I
Hmm.
like to try the clothing on to make sure it doesn't it feels all right.
Oh,
So I want to make sure, is it going to be comfortable? Is it going to be something I'm going to like? Like cotton, I'm usually really good with that.
Yep.
Anything made from different kinds, whereas if it's something made from like knit, for instance, I love knitted shirts, but they vary in how comfortable they can be, and it
Oh,
depends
yes.
also. I think hand sewn obviously is going to feel more better than something that's done by a machine,
Yeah.
obviously. But
Yeah.
that's just me, of course. That's just my personal point of view. But the same thing is like I want to go into these stores and I want to know what I'm gonna buy, and that's
Yeah.
just the coolest part. But no,
I
it's
agree.
really awesome. But that's just but I think when you think about it is these stores really offered and still offer the experience of being able to understand what you're getting yourself into and allowing
Yes.
you to be able to make that judgment a lot easier and better and know that you're getting your money's worth instead of having to make guesses all the time.
Yeah, and I'm not bashing online
Me
shopping.
neither.
Obviously,
Me
we
neither.
talked about how we both, participated in it in our
Absolutely.
own ways. There's just something about going in person that I never end up regretting. Where, if I were to buy something online, maybe 40% of the time I'll regret it, or
Absolutely.
I'll wish that I had either done more research or just found it in a store. I can't tell you the amount of times that a shirt looks amazing on someone
Yeah.
online. I buy it and like the collar is like all the way right here, and I wouldn't have been able
For
been able
real.
to have to tell, had I not put it on. So convenience isn't always the answer, people.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing with convenience is obviously you get catered to you, you get it maybe a little bit sooner and whatnot, but obviously, me personally, I think it actually the bigger convenience is knowing that I'm going to get my money's worth rather than than me just sitting on my couch hitting send and then getting something that I don't know if it's going to work or not.
No, trust me, I
And
love
that's not all
putting
the time
zero
either.
effort. I love putting zero effort into
Oh,
things,
same.
but
Oh, same.
if
Yeah,
I'm going to
exactly.
spend my hard-earned money on it, I'm going to know for a fact that if I like it or not.
Exactly. And I think that's a perfect place. But I think that's a perfect place to actually to move from here because I mean we talked about department stores and I think we all understand that department stores are some of the biggest hallmarks and are always going to be relevant. But now I kind of want to look at some of the malls and the big box chains because these
Yeah.
some of these actually still exist to this day.
Yeah.
And
Thankfully.
thankfully, yeah, and some of these are just massive. So since I went for first this last time, Ramona, I'll let you go ahead and take it forward this time.
Alrighty. So I have three big names right here, and I know for a fact that you know them.
Yep.
And the listeners, I know you guys know these too. And if you don't, I'm wondering if it's a regional thing then,
Yep.
because the three that I'm going to be talking about are Toys R Us, Party City, and Walden Books.
Oh,
So,
you actually took a note out of my paid book because Walden's was one of mine. So let's talk about that one for sure.
okay, cool, cool,
No,
cool.
no,
Well,
no.
we'll
I want to
we'll
talk about that.
we'll end on that one so that we can both uh give points on it too.
Sure. Okay, that's fine.
So Toys R Us was basically a kid's heaven. If you've never heard of Toys R Us, what rock have you been living under?
Come on,
Because if
folks.
you didn't shop at Toys R Us, you had to run through it.
You
Seriously,
did, low
we
key.
we didn't shop. We ran through it. As children,
Hmm.
we were wide-eyed, overstimulated, usually with sticky fingers, sticky hands, grabbing literally everything we could before our parents told us
Hmm.
the infamous words, maybe for your birthday, or no, or maybe for Christmas.
Yep.
It was one of those places where on your birthday, if you were lucky, you went and had a gift card and aunt gave you or something, and you got to pick everything that you wanted. Or, you got
Yeah.
a toy catalog in the mail and you circled with red pen every toy that came out that you knew your mom was going to say no to,
Oh, yeah.
but still as a kid, you had that hope.
Mhm.
It was sensory overload in the best way. The smell, a mix of new plastic, packaging foam, a child who hasn't been changed in hours, the faint
Oh
smell of
man.
rubber and
Oh
and Hot
man.
Wheels
I
and
can sm
inflatable bouncy balls. Do you see the image that I'm trying to
I
portray?
can smell when you said a child that needs to be changed.
Yep,
You do
yep.
not know how many times I've went in a Toys R Us and it stunk.
You're just in the aisle trying to browse for your toy, and a baby is over there just doing its business, and you're like, come on, ladies, you come on, babies, mom,
Or, or else,
go
or
get your
else the
crap
the
together.
child's crying, saying, "Hey, I
Yeah.
need I need a fresh diaper," and the next thing you
Hmm.
know, mom is trying to look at all these things, is on the
I
phone
know.
trying to do this. And I'm not trying to
Yep.
paint a stereotype, but I mean,
No,
I've
no,
just
no.
seen this more often than not with my own two eyes,
Yeah,
and
yeah, no,
whatnot.
same.
And no, I remember, and then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, you're sitting there and you're just going, my goodness. And the other thing I remember too from Toys R Us is the amount of people that worked in that in the Toys R Us venture who you could tell they did not want to work in children's work of line.
No,
You
they
could
did
tell
not.
they did not really want to be there, but yet they gave us the most friendly and the most coolest attitude when we would
100%.
walk in there. And that's where I come back to the idea again of, it's kind of like I hate my job, but because it's what I have, I'm gonna give it my all. That
No,
was the workers
absolutely.
at Toys R Us.
Absolutely.
Until obviously they started going under, then things changed, but
Yes.
for understandable reasons.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And you'd
yeah,
walk in, you'd take in all those smells, and what would you hear? You would hear those mechanical toys that you were talking about when in
yeah,
front of
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
Kmart.
yeah,
You would hear the Toys R Us ones with the Jeffrey, the giraffe, and then the
yeah.
hippopotamus, and or whatever the friends were. And then you'd hear the toys that were being demoed on the aisles. You'd hear, you know, the Barbie Dreamhouse sound,
I
or you'd hear the leapfrog power signal, or you would hear kids laughing and balls bouncing and toys falling off of shelves. There were so many sights, so many smells, or so many smells, so many sounds, and then the sights themselves. Oh my gosh. You'd walk in on the right, there'd be a video game section, and then straight ahead, the newest board game.
I forgot
And
Toys
then
R Us had video games.
yeah, and then you could get consoles, you could get games, and then
Mm.
you could get a bike there. I got a bike there when I was a kid. You could get
Yeah,
virtually anything kid friendly there. And
yeah,
then in later
and
years, it merged to Babies R Us. So there were
yep.
not only sights, sounds, and smells from Toys R Us, but you
Ah,
also got the sights, smells, and sounds from Babies R Us, which was always a part of the store,
I've
but
never
in the back end.
I've never been in a Babies R Us. That's the one I've never was in really, but it
Talk
was
about daycare smells.
daycare smells for sure in Toys R
Mm.
Us. Back when I went to Toys R Us, I remember when it looked like literally looked like a wonderland. I remember I went
Oh
in
yeah,
there. Holy mackerel, I wanted one of everything when I went into Toys R Us.
it was hard not to.
It was hard not to. I think I'm trying to think of some of the things that I got. One thing I really wanted. So when I was a young kid, I was really obsessed with helicopters.
Oh,
That was
nice.
one of my special interests when I was young was helicopters, and it still kind of is honestly because I still like to look at helicopters. I just liked anything that was like moved, big rigs. I liked planes. I liked trains. I liked cars. I liked all that kind of stuff. But helicopters in particular were my big one. And I remember I go by and the helicopters I always loved, and I don't know if this was a sensory thing, but the UH-1 Huey, the iconic helicopter that's in a lot of those Vietnam movies that has that really deep sound to it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I always loved the sound of that helicopter over any other helicopter. Like other helicopters sounded cool, but I always just loved the sound of the Huey helicopter for some reason. And I think a lot of it might have been a sensory thing. It might have just been something that was kind of appeasing and calming to me, which it was. And it was really interesting because they had a set there of a model UH-1 Huey that
Oh,
was
that's
that was flown in
awesome.
Vietnam. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to buy it because it was $35.
Oh yeah,
And
that's a pretty
obviously,
penny.
when obviously back in I think this was 2005, that was pricey.
Yeah, that's about 45 to 50 bucks now, given
Exactly. And
inflation.
so
Yeah.
it's almost like the a Lego. And obviously my parents said, you're gonna really have to dedicate some time to put this together because it's not like a model that just goes A, B, C, D. It was one of those that,
No,
you know,
yeah.
you had to put a lot of time and effort into.
Oh yeah. Specialty toys were amazing at Toys R Us, especially if like a new movie came out. You can expect a dedicated aisle just for a bunch of toys on that theme or on that movie.
Mm.
I can't tell you the amount of times a new Star Wars movie came out or a new Spider-Man
Oh,
movie to where an
have you
entire aisle was dedicated to
ha-
toys. geared towards that.
Did you see how Toys R Us decked out their store when Revenge of the Sith came out?
Oh my gosh, yes, I got Darth Maul's well, they brought back all the lightsabers, but at the time I got Darth Maul's lightsaber.
Well, yeah, exactly. No, that when Revenge of the Sith came out, all the stores, I mean, Target and Walmart did the same thing, but
Hmm.
Toys R Us. So unfortunately up here we did not really have a Toys R Us, but every time we went to the Valley, I went into a Toys R Us. And at
Okay.
that time, Revenge of the Sith was coming out, and that was like the big marketing push because like everybody was like, "Oh, this is the movie where Anakin turns into Vader. Like this is gonna be like
Yeah.
this is gonna be it, you know?" And I remember the whole store when you walk in, Darth Vader. Yeah, exactly. They had a machine that made that noise.
I had that.
And
I
when
had the mask with the machine that goes on your chest.
really?
Yep,
Oh, that's
yep,
so dope.
yep.
Yep, they had that, and then literally the whole up right up at the front they had Star Wars stuff, and then you go back to the actual area where they had that kind of stuff. Everything was themed with Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. And I remember they had the name of the movie, they had the
Oh yeah.
characters, they had Vader, they had all these other things. It was absolutely insane. And actually, it's funny that I mentioned Revenge of the Sith because very soon Revenge of the
I
Sith
was
is
just
about to
gonna
have its
say.
it's about to have its 20th anniversary. And actually,
Yep.
I've got tickets. I'm gonna go watch that, so I'm excited.
I'm seeing that with a friend of mine. I haven't snagged any tickets yet. I doubt it's gonna sell out here in Tucson,
I
but I'm
hope
excited for that too. Another big
it is
thing that
Revenge
I
of the Sith
remember.
after all, though.
Yes,
Don't forget. Yeah,
yes.
but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Um, no, yeah. Oh, well, the only reason I say this because there are like 8 or 9 movie theaters here
Oh, fair. Okay.
versus Flagstaff. There's only one.
Yeah.
But anyway, cardboard cutouts. They sold cardboard cutouts at
Mm,
Toys R Us, and they also sold
yep.
movies and CDs at Toys R Us. So
Really?
it was one. Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't remember this.
Well, actually, I don't remember if there are CDs all genres, but they had kids CDs and they had movies there. They had DVDs, and
Really?
if you wanted something Star Wars, it was really cool. You could go to one aisle and there would be, lightsabers. Halfway down that aisle, action figures. At the end of that aisle,
Okay.
everything Lego Star Wars. And then at
Okay.
the end, a cardboard cutout. And then by that cardboard cutout, you would have the DVD release, or you would have a sign pointing to the game section saying, check out the new Star Wars game in our game center or something like that.
Wow. I did
Toys R
not
Us
know
was one
that.
of those. Oh, yeah. Toys R Us was one of those places where I would go to literally like every week, even if it was just with friends to walk around, just
Yeah.
because of how immersive the experience was. It was
Yeah.
literally everything.
Oh, it was
But
immersive, all right. Yeah.
just to finish off on Toys R Us, they also sent out catalogs like big department stores
They did.
called like I think the Big Book of Toys,
Yep.
and you would circle literally everything as a kid. It'd come into your mailbox
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you'd
Yeah. Yeah.
just circle everything that you wanted. Um,
Absolutely.
certain things like the Super Soaker, which was huge when we were
Oh,
kids.
the Super
The
Soaker.
Easy Bake Oven, the new Game
The
Boy
slip and slide.
Color, the slip and slides. Yep, yep,
Holy
all of
mackerel.
those. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. For the ladies, like the Polly Pockets and the My Little Pet Shops, and then for the
The
guys,
Barbies.
the Barbies. Then
Yeah.
for the guys, the Tech Deck skateboards, and then the
Yeah, yeah,
jumping
yeah, yeah.
beans,
The
and then
tech
the
decks and all
the
that.
deck the
Do
the
you remember like
Beyblade.
this? Do you remember like the Spy Gear stuff where it was
Oh,
like you
I
have
love
those little?
that.
Oh my gosh! Whenever
I
I was
love
at Toys R Us, that was the thing I wanted because like I remember like I'm sorry guys, I'm getting hyped, but I'm enjoying myself. So apologies if I blow out anyone's eardrum. Sorry, not sorry. But basically I remember whenever I was at Toys R Us, that was the thing that I wanted usually. And I remember I had this one. It was a little
Same.
car, and you could drive it into somewhere, and then you
Oh
could
my!
it
It
could
had the mini
like a
camera.
few. It had the mini camera, but it also had like an earpiece, so you could have like you could put like a little thing in your ear, and it could hear up to like a few feet away. So you could be
That's
in your room,
amazing.
hide it under like a chair or something, and you could hear like a conversation that you and your parents
Yep.
are having.
That's so funny. I had a spy one that came with 2 walkie-talkies. It came with invisible ink, which to this day I don't even know what it is. It
Really?
also
Okay, yeah,
came
yeah.
with like a journal box that you could like write secrets and whatnot. And
Oh,
then it
that's
also
cool.
came with a night vision goggles, which were really just like
Wow, that
glasses
is
in green
cool.
print. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember also when at Toys R Us too, there was this one train set that I really wanted, but unfortunately I never got it. But it was an Amtrak line.
Oh, that's pretty
that
cool.
it was Amtrak's Genesis is what it was. And it went around this whole thing. It had like a whole village, and it also came with a Santa Fe set, and it came with a steam locomotive set.
Wow.
You do not know how bad I wanted that when I was
I
a
bet that
kid.
was a pretty penny though.
Oh yeah, you ready to hear how much that was?
Can I guess?
Go, yeah, I
Came with
guess.
all three at the time, and I'm not giving prices for inflation. I think at the time it was probably like $135.
135?
That would be my guess.
It was $200.
Yeah, that's something that Toys R Us did or was known for. It's very pricey when it comes to their toys.
Yeah, especially with high-end stuff like that. But
Oh
I
yeah.
I
Yeah,
wanted that
yeah,
so bad
yeah.
because it was automatic. You could run it through not just one area. You could run that thing through your entire house. They had like sets where you
That's
could like
awesome.
run it through different areas, and you could run it on top of things. You could run it through things. It was the coolest thing. I don't know the brand name of it, but it was the sickest thing. And they all had motors, so you could set one going, and then you could have another one go right after that, and then
That
so
is
forth.
actually so sick.
It
That's
was sick,
so
low
cool.
key. It was like the coolest thing I remember when I was young. Yeah,
Now,
so
I don't know if you ever subscribed to the newsletter of Toys R Us, but if you did subscribe or if you had an account under your name as a child, every birthday on the dot up until you're 18, you would either get a phone call or you
yes,
would get a personalized letter
I
slash
remember this.
birthday
Yes,
card.
yes, yes, yes.
Um, Never with anything, anything incentive based to bring you to the store, but it was always like
Yep,
a nice little message, like sort of a "we're thinking of you" type of thing.
absolutely.
And I mean, with all good things, it must come to an end at some point. And unfortunately, back in 2017, Toys R Us did have to file for bankruptcy. And
Unfortunately.
yes, and then it later followed with the closure of all of their US stores in 2018. But since
Yes,
then, there have been small comeback attempts like mini locations inside of Macy's or even a flagship reopening in their New Jersey location. But
absolutely.
the original magic, those warehouse style aisles and the big toy hunts and all the memories that we have as a kid, unfortunately, has not returned. And I don't see it
Sadly
returning
not.
anytime soon. But Toys R Us, you will never be forgotten. That's for sure.
Yeah, real quick before we move on from Toys R Us, I think we need to do the proper thing and we need to say the jingle that everybody knows, because I don't think it'd be proper to close out the Toys R Us chapter without us saying it.
I'll definitely let you lead that.
I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us
You're a
kid.
kid.
Yep. And you know what? We are still kids in our own ways to this day. So
Yep,
thank you, Toys R Us, for reminding us that even though we are adults with responsibilities now, we can still have fun and we can still enjoy the things that we love from our childhood. So thank you.
absolutely. Thank
All
you.
right.
Hats
Yep.
off to you.
Yep.
And then my last pick, or actually my second pick, my second
Yep.
to last pick is Party City,
Party
which,
City. They
yep,
just recently, if I'm not mistaken, filed, right? Or it said they're
yes,
going to
and
close.
yeah, and it was the go-to store for special occasions. So
Yep.
if you had a birthday party or a school dance or Halloween was coming up,
Oh my
it
gosh.
was your
Yes.
go-to place or your parents' go-to place or your school teacher's go-to place for streamers, cannons, themed napkins. If you wanted a Harry Potter water bottle holder with confetti
Oh
inside
yeah.
or something
Uh-huh.
like that, or a
Yep.
goofy costume, that was your
Mhm.
place to go.
Oh, that place
And
was
the,
amazing.
the sensory overload in that was similar to that of Toys R Us, but
Absolutely.
except what hit you was the latex smell of balloons because they were also known for as we said earlier, occasions like parties, but also just anything themed around balloons. So you can get small balloons, big balloons, bulk size balloons. You could get one balloon if you wanted.
Yep.
So the entire store just smelled of balloons, and you could just hear helium. You could hear like plastic. You could hear like people laughing over costumes with like 2000s
Yeah.
pop music playing in the background. It was literally a place to be, but it was one of those special occasion places that you would go maybe once a month. It wasn't somewhere you ventured to often.
No, for real, because so we had one similar up here. We didn't necessarily have a Party City, but ours was called Pretty Party Place. It was kind
Oh,
of an
okay.
offshoot of that, but it was the exact same style and layout as Party City. Because when I went into Party City, it was the same thing. But it was really cool. Party City was definitely the place where you'd go if you wanted to have a themed birthday party, if you wanted to have if you wanted to just have fun, or even if you just wanted to do a generic party. I mean, they had all
Oh
your
yeah.
needs. They had the plates, they had the napkins, and it wasn't just like a set of 10 like you see now. It was like sets of 30 or 50.
Oh yeah. It was
Like
bulk.
like they didn't kid around. They was go big or go home, like
Oh
with
yeah.
Party City. And I was gonna ask you real quick, do you remember the area where you had areas where you could pick out different kinds of balloons? Like you actually had like little sections where it just had one style of balloon. You could pull that forward and be like, "Yep, this is the balloon I want."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they also had them on the ceiling
And on
too.
the ceiling, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you had a variety of them. And if it wasn't on the ceiling, you just ask, and then you'd go walk over to the area, you'd find the balloon, and then before you leave, ask them to blow it up.
Oh, absolutely. And
There you
they're
go.
not just your run of the mill oval balloons.
Oh yeah.
You had Eiffel Tower balloons. You had
Yes.
Spider-Man balloons. You had literally adult-sized balloons sometimes. Excuse me.
You
You
might
had
want to you mind clarifying that a little bit, my friend? No, I'm messing with you. I'm messing with you. I'm messing with you. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it.
no,
I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it.
I've when I was a kid and I would see like a big Superman balloon that was taller than me that was supposed to be floating, like that
Yeah.
blew my mind. It
No,
blew
real.
my mind.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. No, no, no. I hear you. I just had to mess with you. I'm
No
sorry.
self-incriminating here.
I'm sorry. I couldn't help
No, no.
myself, folks.
I
I'm
know.
sorry.
I would have taken advantage of that joke too.
Okay.
But a distinct memory I have
Yeah.
growing up Party City, we would go there. Oh, I think every Halloween, really, if we were on time when it came to that. My family's big on procrastinating, so whenever we had
Likewise.
a chance, we would go to Party City for Halloween. And I remember seeing there was this wall with pictures about this big, no bigger than an index card, showing the image of the costume right next to it, a number like say hashtag or pound 109. And if you wanted that costume, you would either take a slip or you would memorize pound 109,
Oh yeah.
and you would go up to the front and you'd say, "Hey, I would like pound 109 in an adult large or in a child XL," something
Yeah.
like that. And someone in the back would come out with this plastic bag and be like, "Here's your costume." And that was the experience.
You don't get
I
more
remember
magical than that.
literally, I remember literally begging. Me and my brothers were just begging for my mom to get us the ghost face scream costume, the full body one with the voice changer.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. Oh, I forgot it had a voice changer on it. Yeah.
yeah, no, it had a voice changer. And
Wow.
depending on the type of mask that you bought, the one that we ended up getting, she vetoed at first, but then obviously we, the three of us had some charm, enough charm to persuade her to get it for us. But the mask that we ended up getting was one that was attached to this valve that mimicked the shape of a heart, but was as big as, say, I have small hands, so like the palm of my hand, and
Yeah.
and you would press it and blood would, or fake blood, in this case I assume like corn syrup, would come down out of the mask. And you
What?
just didn't really see those, you don't really see those things on Amazon anymore. Like Party City, like the types of costumes they had were the types that you would pay money for, and
Yeah.
good money. I would say about $30, 30 to $50 for a
Wow.
costume, which added up if you had siblings and whatnot. But
Hmm.
more so than that, like say if you were having a themed party, I can't tell you the amount of times I had a themed party that was either Yu-Gi-Oh, Harry Potter, Spider-Man,
Yep.
and Party City, or in your case, the party supply place in Flagstaff.
Yep.
They had literally everything from hats to plates to banners, to where you could literally make the identity of your party come to life because of the
Hmm.
assortment that they had for you. So if you wanted your party to be big and memorable, you were going to Party City at one point to pick up your things.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yo, you got me nerding out so hard listening to all this because I'm just having so many flashbacks coming in my mind right now. It's wild, but I absolutely agree. I think it's one of those things where, You could literally find in there anything for any kind of party, any kind of thing. But the fact of the matter that you could find some unique stuff and they
Oh yeah.
catered to everyone. It wasn't just, oh, we're just going to be 100% kid friendly. Like you said, they had the ghost face costume.
Yeah, for everybody.
I'm sure they had stuff from Halloween and a lot of
Oh
these other
yeah.
horror movies, and it wasn't just necessarily catered to being a kid-friendly place. It's like we have stuff here for the grown-ups too. And I think
Oh
that
yeah.
that was what made Party City such a cool place, and I'm sad to see the state it's in now.
Yeah,
Because
unfortunately,
because
yes.
also I think now I'm kind of looking at it too. Birthday parties are very different now than when we were young. Because when we were young, you did like a theme. It was stuff you liked.
Do
You
kids
got a
even
big
do
group.
birthday parties now? I'm so
Do
detached from like modern day childhood. Like,
I
what
think
even goes
some do,
on?
but I think now it's more in the experience of I just invite a few friends over, maybe play some games, have some food and cake, and that's it. It's
I can
not
see
like
that. Okay.
I'm not saying that people still don't do themed birthday parties because they absolutely do. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, it's a little different now. A lot of the time it's more catered to just, like what do you want? I mean, it was
Yeah.
always like that, but I think back in the day because people did theme stuff, it's like I like Spider-Man. I want a Spider-Man themed birthday party. For instance, when I was 4 years old, I loved Blue's Clues. I wanted a Blue's Clues themed birthday
Oh
party.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And stuff like that. Whereas now I think it's more of just the fun of it. It's kind of like, okay, how many friends am I gonna have come over? Okay, I'm grab this many friends. We're gonna get this food. We're gonna do this, and maybe we'll play some video games. Maybe we'll watch a
Yeah.
movie. We'll do stuff like that. You don't really have the era when you're playing games like Pin the Tail on the Donkey, really,
No, yeah, I
and
think
stuff
our
like that.
generation was definitely the last generation to go
Hmm.
through party games.
Hmm.
Um, unfortunately, the perception that I have, and obviously it's very skewed because I don't really have any kids in my life that, I can use as examples.
Sure.
But I have seen Instagrams and TikToks of parents who are in between our generation and our parents' generation, and some who are actually
Yeah.
our generation, even
Sure.
younger,
Sure.
who what appeals to them is more of a minimalistic take on decor.
Yeah.
So I've seen movements where the parent will order like the most mundane gray napkins
Hmm.
that go with the most mundane like white balloons, and all of this is to like fit their aesthetic, and like the color in life is being taken away from it altogether, and they're doing a birthday party for like a 4-year-old.
Straight
And
up.
I'm like, why? Like
Straight
this
up.
child, why are the balloons all black? Or why are all the balloons gray? Or
Straight
why
up.
just,
Yeah, yeah, it's all like
or
color coordinated
beige.
now. Yeah, it's like
Exactly, exactly.
it's not like colorful like it used to be or just kind of
No,
out
yeah.
there or just unique, to whatever you wanted. So,
Yeah. And
no.
and that is like a very small percentage of like the
Sh-
people that
Oh,
that I
no,
know, you know.
yeah, for sure. I absolutely
But the
agree. I
fact
think
that that's even an appeal is interesting to me, given how we grew up with, all these color overloads and sensory
sure.
overloads when it comes to sounds and cartoon characters, things like that.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
That's really
Also,
cool.
with like the younger generation, I feel like a lot of it is what can my party be so that I can post it on Instagram. I
True.
see like I see like nine
True,
to
true.
12-year-olds on TikTok talking about how they have Instagram, and I'm like, why? And
That's
then that makes
wild.
me
That's
think
wild.
about like the parts of their lives that they have to curate for themselves to be aesthetically pleasing. I know for a
Mhm.
fact that if I was a kid in the time that we had cell phones,
Yeah.
my Yu-Gi-Oh birthday party would have not gotten any hits. They
I
would
hear
have
you.
not it wouldn't have gotten any likes.
Yeah.
But now it's like, how can we do a project X for fifth graders? And it's
Straight
like,
up.
come on.
It's like just let them have fun. Come
Let
on,
them be
let them
kids.
be
Yeah.
kids. Exactly. It's kind of like, don't put all that pressure on them. Just let them do what they want to do. And I
Mhm.
think that's what's most important. But I definitely think Party City, even though it's sad that it's going down, it's always going to hold a special place in our hearts.
Yeah.
And I think again there'll always still be in some way or shape or form a demand for for getting party supplies and for doing these kind of parties and such. But it's definitely not going to be what it used to be. But at the same time, I can see why some of these stores are just not relevant, and it's really sad. But
Yeah.
Party City, thank you for everything. And
Hmm.
I know you're going to be going under soon, but let's maybe we can hope. That's all we can do. We can hope. You never know. We never know what
Yeah.
can happen.
No, 100%.
If
And the
vinyl, if
last place. Oh, go right
I was
ahead.
gonna
Sorry.
just say if vinyl and VHS can have a resurgence, I think party stores can have a resurgence
Oh,
eventually.
that's the hope.
That's the hope.
I recently heard someone talking about how hard it was for them to find their child-specific character on Amazon,
Yeah,
napkins, balloons, and stuff like that. And I thought, well, had Party City
you just
continue
go
to be
right over to
relevant, we
Party
would have just gone
City.
to Party City.
Yeah, exactly. And
But that's a great segue to our last or
let's
my
go.
last example, and one that John and I hold near and dear just because of the amount of times we've referenced it in the podcast. It's Walden Books.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it's a small but mighty bookstore, let me tell you that. And it was
Mhm.
always tucked in a mall, always in the little corner or by a Macy's. I don't know. It was always this warm and quiet place full of possibilities that, you could go to sort of de-stress and relax from
Straight
the
up.
overall hype of what the mall offered back in its heyday. It's where kids like John and I fell in love with the Goosebumps series or
Yep.
Animorphs or Harry
Yep.
Potter
Hmm.
or even older books like The Babysitter's Club, things like that.
The Babysitters Club.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
little sanctuary for the overstimulated, really.
for
Like,
for sure.
the sounds, sights, and all of that of the and
For
smells of the
sure.
mall. You had this little store tucked away that offered, quietness and a familiarity that, you could only get in school or in a library. And unfortunately, I don't really have too much to say about it because they did start phasing out early in our childhood. So,
Yep.
like the late 2000s, I would say, like by 2007, it was out of the Tucson Mall, I believe.
Yeah.
Because big stores, which actually no longer exist, like Borders, took over basically.
Barnes and
So
Noble.
Barnes and Noble just
They were the
completely
ones
wiped out
leading
Borders
that
too.
whole chain. Yeah.
Oh
Barnes and
yeah.
Noble's Borders. I think B. Dalton lived a little bit longer because they kind of became a bit of a chain like that. But again,
Oh,
they
okay.
would face the same because I think B. Dalton and Walden's were the two biggest competitors for mall bookstores like that.
I'll
Those.
have to do some research to see if there was a B. Dalton's in any of the Tucson malls because,
Mhm.
from my memory, I don't recall any of them.
So B. Dalton, we didn't have a B. Dalton up here, but I remember in Phoenix there were definitely some B. Dalton books, and that's where I fell in love with like the Arthur books and
Oh
whatnot.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
they not necessarily the Arthur picture books, but like the Arthur like almost like novelization kind of style
Oh,
of
I was
books.
thinking of the Mark Brown illustrated ones. Okay, okay.
Yeah, because I mean, like Mark Brown then started doing some like Arthur's Mystery Envelope,
I do
Arthur and the Crunch
remember those.
Cereal Contest, and they were more novelized, like for children,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And when I mean, they were also written by Mark Brown. I mean,
Yeah,
because but they weren't the illustrated, Arthur books,
gotcha.
because those started to come later, and they were trying to make stories for older. But a lot of those also got adapted into the children's show as well
Gotcha.
and whatnot. But it was really interesting. But that's where I fell in love with those because in Phoenix there was a B. Dalton Books, and I remember that I would go in there occasionally. But no, Walden's was a wonderland, because
Oh yeah.
I. So here's the thing. When I was young, and I'm sure Ramona, you know this show very well. I was an avid fan of the show Reading Rainbow as a
Oh
child.
yeah. Reading Rainbow.
Butterfly in the sky.
Go
I can
twice
go
as
twice as
high.
high. Take a look.
It's
It's in
in a
a
book.
book.
Reading.
Reading Rainbow. Oh my gosh. Reading Rainbow.
Oh yeah.
That was like one of my shows. And the thing was, oftentimes when we'd watch an episode of Reading Rainbow, me and my mom would go to the library and we would get the book.
Oh, that's amazing. I love
And
that.
regardless of what it was, whether it was something like, bread is for eating or The Tin Forest, which was a beautiful episode, and or Abiyoyo or stuff like that, we'd always be going to hunt for the books afterwards. And but then oftentimes I wanted to own the books, because I was like, it wasn't enough that I just got to read it for a bit and I had to take it back. It's kind of like, we'll check it out so we can read it and you can know what the book is like, and you can have that love for reading, but at the same time, you can also, we if you really like this book, we will look into trying to get it for you. And Walden's was that place because they had so many of the Reading Rainbow books in that store. And oftentimes they'd be marked as Reading Rainbow to so people knew that this was on an episode of Reading Rainbow.
I feel
And
like a place like Walden Books was like, a heaven for, or a haven, a safe haven for like teachers too,
oh,
because I feel
sure.
like they felt like it was like an extension of a school library, like you were saying, like all of these books that
Hmm.
made up our childhoods were
Yep.
found there.
Absolutely. It was a wonderland, like I say. You
Mhm.
go into Walden's and you can find so many different kinds of books in there. And also some of the Dr. Seuss's also came from Walden books as well. Um, excuse me. I believe Are You My Mother, which was my first book, came from Walden Books.
Really?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, and a lot of different books like that. But no, it was an interesting time, I will say. Walden Books offered so much for both young and adult like, and I remember I first bought my first copy of the book The Phantom of the Opera from Walden Books as well because they sold it in a
Wow.
classic. So that shows how long Walden lived, because by the time I was into my late teens, not late teens, what am I saying? Into my early tweens is what I was trying to say.
Okay.
Um, that's when Walden started to go under a bit, but I was able to go in there and
Yeah.
find the book and I bought it. And I think that was the last book I bought at Walden's.
I think my first book I bought at Walden's, well, actually, it's either the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series,
Okay.
the Captain Underpants, or it was
Oh, yeah.
Goosebumps. But one of the most memorable books I purchased at Walden Books was this special edition of Goosebumps that had, I think, two or three scary tales in them.
Hmm.
Um, and you would open it and it would scream.
Oh,
There was a
what?
little voice box. Yeah, there was a little voice box that would detect if you opened the front cover. And every time you
Okay.
opened the front cover, it would go,
Okay.
"Ah," or something like that,
That's
a
really cool.
shrieking scream. And I can't tell you the amount of times I got in trouble in class because I brought that book to school.
Oh, that's
And me,
great.
I'm just trying to read it and go,
That's funny.
part of me also wanted to be a troublemaker and disrupt the environment, but you know,
Hmm.
you know how that goes. But just to
Absolutely.
just to finish off my little section here, I just
Hmm.
wanted to do a final little reflection on these wonderful stores,
Yes.
because Toys R Us in the end was about wonder and what we wanted as children, and
Absolutely.
Party City was about what we anticipated and identified with as children,
Yes.
anticipated as in occasional, or occasion wise. And then Walden Books was a place for us to be curious and for us to escape. Now, a few honorable mentions that I'm not going to be talking about in the rest of this episode, but uh, John might touch upon.
Mhm.
A few of these were also huge markers and staples to our weekend ventures, and also to places, and are also the places that our parents loved taking us, or were memorable because we would walk by them and not understand exactly what was going on in the store. These are a couple of things, or a couple of the stores that I wanted to give an honorable mention and shout out to.
Yep.
One of them being Borders, which
Yep.
sold media, which was
Absolutely.
basically, how should I say it, the foundation that Barnes and Noble helped build. And then we
Mhm.
had stores like Radio Shack,
Oh, yes.
amazing tech store for science and tech geeks
Oh, yep.
like ourselves. And then another place that I know for a fact almost every mother loved was Linen and Things. One of the most
Oh, Lennon
boring
and things.
stores that I had to go to growing up.
I
Literally
hear
bed
you. I hear
sheets,
you.
all those
I wish we
things.
had it now, though, but I mean, then
Now
it
we
sucked.
I know, but as kids.
As kids, it sucked.
Now
But
there are two stores that I never went to, but for some reason they were in every mall I ever ventured to, and they were more geared towards little feminine girls. Limited Two and Libby Lou. Um,
oh,
think of like a Claire's where you can get like your ears pierced, you can get your nails done, you can buy like little purses, things like that,
Yeah.
uh, geared and aimed towards little girls. And then favorite of mine, but also a huge part of John's life because he's talked about it in the past, KB Toys.
That is one of my picks.
Yep.
So we'll get into
Yep.
that for sure.
Heck yeah, I figured you would. And then I just have a couple more, and let us know in the comments if you guys venture to these places on the
Or
regular, or
DM
if you
us.
or DM us exactly.
Mhm.
Another one that is notable and I loved going into as a kid was the Discovery Channel store. So
Oh, let's
everything that you would
go.
see on the Discovery Channel, mechanics wise or toy wise or even just memorabilia wise, would be at this store. And you'd see like cool, you'd see T-shirts, you'd see telescopes, you'd see back massagers. It was just a world of just experimentation, really.
Sure.
And then another store that I know a lot of people actually don't recall, but I have vivid memories of when I was a kid. And
Yep.
there was actually one in the Tucson Mall here. I don't know if you would have had one in Flagstaff just because the mall is a little bit smaller,
Okay.
but the Warner Brothers Studio store. And
Oh
there they
no,
had
we never had that.
everything
I
Warner
remember
Brothers.
though. Warner
So
Brothers and Disney. I remember those two for sure.
Oh yes, in the Disney store, RIP the Disney store. So the Warner Brothers
Yeah.
store was basically the Disney store, but everything Warner Brothers. So think Looney Tunes, all of that.
Yep.
And a staple of the Warner Brothers store was when you would walk in front of it or walk by it, you would have these like 10-foot statues of either Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Lola Bunny, literally anyone. And they were these huge 10-foot statues that you could take pictures with or as a kid play around.
Sure.
And that was just the experience outside of the store. And then when you went in the store, you had anything Warner Brothers memorabilia, from whether it be specific sets or if it
Yep.
was about Looney Tunes or whatever. They all had it there,
Mhm.
and I feel like
Yep.
that's one of the stores that everyone forgets about. Everyone forgets about.
Yeah, and I think also because Warner Brothers, despite the brand they had, it just wasn't as big as the Disney store because Disney
Mm-mm.
store was catered to children, and it was catered to families and stuff, and anybody could go in the Disney store and get what they wanted.
That's
But
true.
Warner Brothers, I think a lot of times doesn't get the respect it deserves because it was kind of one of those stores where not everybody necessarily knew because obviously with like
Yeah,
Looney Tunes that predated a lot of people who are now into Disney and whatnot, and
yeah,
just a
absolutely.
lot of different things like that. And also, I don't think a lot of people, when they look at Warner, they're kind of like just thinking like, what is this just going to be like a house of like Harry Potter stuff and whatnot? No, it's so much more than that
Oh,
and
so much
whatnot.
more. And I'm glad that
Mhm.
you brought that up because I feel like now, if we still had the Warner Brothers store, it would, or at least in like before 2013, it would have been mostly Harry Potter
Mostly Harry Potter and DC stuff is
and
what I feel
DC.
like it would be
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
whatnot. But no, really, no, great stuff, Ramona. You really got some stores. So the one that I'm gonna axe from my list is Sears because we covered Sears with department stores. I feel like we
All right.
covered it,
That's fair.
we covered it pretty well. And I think actually now looking back, I think I'm glad that we covered it there because even though Sears was a part of the mall, I do remember that it was more or less a department store than it was a mall store, if that makes sense.
I can see where you're coming from.
And
Yeah.
the reason I say is because, mall stores were like these little areas you would go in and, you got one here, 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 whereas Sears took up a whole area of the
Oh,
mall
yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
such. And I'm going to give my honorable mentions actually kind of up at the front. You got places like Dillard's, you have
Oh,
places
yeah.
like Macy's. Macy's,
Hmm.
I do definitely want to cover a little bit of just because of its impact
Oh,
that it's
yeah.
had. But there's places also Bath and Body Works,
Oh, yeah.
Spencer's, GameStop.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, GameStop is still a hub to this day that a lot of
Oh,
people
yeah.
love. And GameStop now is not just a mall store anymore. It's now franchised into
Hmm.
something bigger. Although I will say, if I'm going to shop for video games, I still personally would prefer to shop at like a Target or Walmart. I'm not too fond of GameStop these days. I think you can understand
Oh, yeah.
why, but
Oh, yeah.
just seems like the people who work there, they're never really happy, friendly. I can understand why. I mean, whatnot, but like every time I've gone in there, I've just not gotten good service. So,
Well, I feel like we should dedicate an entire episode on the shift of the gaming store and how it turned
oh,
into how
absolutely.
at one point it was like we keep saying a hub for us to hang out and expect new releases, things like that, to a digital download through Xbox or through the Microsoft store or through the Sony PlayStation store, or in your case, going to Target or Walmart, like the
Absolutely.
experience changed so much that people would rather not go to GameStop most of the time. Do you know what I mean? Whereas
No, I
before
hear
that
you
was the place to
100%.
be.
I hear you 100%. I think it's one of those things where, you go to a place like one of those stores and, it's just a whole different experience. And now
Yeah.
now video games, sometimes you have to get DLC, you have to get all these other different things,
Yeah.
and it's definitely a chore. So definitely something I would like to
Sure.
expand upon in a future episode for sure.
Okay.
There's a lot of those just kind of those hubs, you got the Van store, you
Oh yeah.
have
Hot
um
Topic at
Hot
one point was cool.
Topics, a lot of those kind of places. And so
Tilly, did you ever go to Tilly's?
Tilly's.
Tilly's.
What was Tilly's? Remind me.
They sold like skater clothes with like Vans
Oh,
shoes and like
yes, I remember
backpacks and
Tilly's.
stuff.
I never went in there. It was not my vibe
Really.
personally, but it was cool to see. It was a cool place to see. I saw a lot of different kinds of people going there.
I was an angsty teenager, so Tilly's, Spencer's, and Hot Topic were the hubs for my
I
wardrobe
hear you. Fair enough.
in
Yeah,
my
yeah.
teens.
I think
So
Hot Topic for me was mostly just the rock and roll shirts because I grew up with rock and roll. I grew up with
yeah.
everything from Elvis to the Beatles to the Who to Led Zeppelin,
Oh yeah.
groups like that, and such, and so oftentimes they still sold merch from those bands, whereas, a
Yeah.
lot of other places moved on to, Taylor Swift and Mariah Carey and
Hmm.
Beyonce and stuff like that. So that was one thing I did like about Hot Topic. But the one I really mostly want to talk about is KB Toys.
Oh
And the
yes.
reason being is because they were almost a direct competitor to Toys R Us, but instead of being its own real enterprise, it was a mall store.
Yeah.
And KB Toys was really kind of the hub where you could go get good quality toys and such at a relatively lower price. Because as we mentioned earlier, Toys R Us love to price gouge. They really love
Yeah.
to, price their things high. KB Toys, though, often had a lot more affordable things in in their shops, and they had a
Okay.
lot of the same merchandise that Toys R Us had. But I think the thing that KB Toys did really well was they catered to those smaller communities, if you know what I mean. So
Oh yeah, I was
instead
about
of
to mention that.
instead of being like this massive chain that maybe only exists in like big cities and stuff like that, you could find a KB Toys pretty much almost in any mall. And that was the thing. Even cities that had Toys R Us usually still had a KB Toys in them. And KB Toys just had so many cool, different, little gadgets, little just fun things. They range from everything from basic toys like yo-yos, whoopee cushions, all that stuff, all the way up to like massive, like Star Wars, Lego, all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and Harry Potter, all that kind of stuff. And it was just a cool, fun place to go and just to go see and hang out in because the thing with
Oh yeah.
KB Toys was, and they had board games, they had everything.
Hmm.
And I think the reason that I'm a little bit more biased to KB is because obviously I had a KB Toys, I didn't have a Toys R Us. But the fact of the matter is that they everything was reasonably priced in KB Toys. So usually, even if I couldn't walk away with a whole bunch of stuff, I could walk away with at least one item.
Oh
And
yeah.
and KB Toys it was just a fun place, and that was most of the time that's where I'd spend most of my time when I was in the mall. So rest in
Yeah.
peace, KB Toys.
Yes, RIP. I definitely have fond memories of KB Toys, but I started to appreciate it more in my teens, mostly because
Oh,
the
sure.
selection of um collectibles and action figures.
I was just
It
about to
was
say that. Yes.
Yeah, it was a lot more I guess it was just tailored for our age group where Toys R
Mhm.
Us, it was definitely a place for toys.
Yes.
And KB Toys, even in the title, they do have toys, obviously,
Yes.
but they also had a variety of collectibles. So if you were
Hmm.
starting to collect or were an avid collector, that was one of the go-to places that was more affordable
Absolutely.
um, than like say a geekery store or whatever. You still had that option where it was the accessibility of being in the mall while
Mhm.
also having like that niche subject matter that you could like KB Toys was one of those places that you could get like Elephant the Elephant board game,
Right. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
also a place that you could get a minifigure of Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, so
Yep, I remember
it was a
seeing that.
spectrum of things. You know,
And
and then
those
at
were
one,
usually, go ahead.
oh, go no, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say usually those also were kept at the back of the store, which was
Yes,
nice.
yeah,
So it wasn't up in front where like,
yeah,
maybe a little kid might be shopping and then they see Leatherface or Michael Myers and then they are
yeah,
scared. So
yeah.
that's one thing I did appreciate is they kept those in a certain area and
Mm,
whereas up front it was all the kids stuff, all the fun
yeah.
toys and all that. And then if you really wanted to look for that kind of stuff, you go to the back.
Yeah, and then at one point, I believe it was like maybe 3 to 4 years before they actually closed the location in the Tucson Mall,
Yep.
they started selling posters and comics too, and I thought that was super cool because that's just something that you didn't really see in toy stores, you know? You
Sure.
saw that in collectible stores, but you didn't see it in toy stores, and KB sort of had like the infusion of both or the fusion of both.
For sure, they absolutely did. And because I think KB was catering to, a massive audience too. Because when you go to a mall, you get all kinds of people. And you have
Amen.
to
Yep.
figure
Yep.
too that, probably the older brother and sister doesn't want to go in Toys R Us, really. The last thing they're looking at is,
Yeah.
hope my buddies don't see me going in here.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas you say that and you go into KB Toys, you go around the corner. Hey, John, what's up, man? Did you see this action figure, bro? This place is lit.
Yeah. No,
And
yeah.
whatnot. And
It
I'm
didn't
not
have, like,
shaming
the childish
and
stigma around
and I'm
it.
not trying to shame anyone. I still went into Toys R Us when I was
Yeah.
well into my teens, but still, I mean there's definitely that difference that dichotomy, you know what I mean?
Oh,
And
completely.
and such. But KB Toys was definitely probably one of my favorites. I just want to touch upon Macy's really quick just because of the legacy they have left.
For sure.
And really if you think about when you say the term department store, Macy's is usually the first name that comes to mind when you say that.
Oh, in the US, absolutely.
And the reason I
Absolutely.
say that is because when you look at Macy's, obviously most people now look at it as a clothing store. But
Yeah.
when we were young, Macy's did have more than one thing. They did have at times foodware. You could go in and
Oh,
you could
yeah.
get foodware. You could get stuff to, you could get china at Macy's,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
whatnot. I think you still can in most of them, but you don't
Mm.
see a lot of that. And in some Macy's there were places dedicated to kids. I mean, obviously there
Yeah.
wasn't like a toy section or anything, but sometimes they would have little things that the kids could see. Sometimes they'd have like certain kinds of televisions. It usually wasn't the big flat screens or anything, but just kind of like the
Mm.
family set. So like they'd sometimes have like a media center, like where you can put your TV and then you have areas to put like your games and stuff and
Yeah.
movies and tapes and stuff. They would sometimes have entertainment centers like that. And sometimes they'd have a TV on there and they'd be showing a movie or something. So that was one thing. But that was way a lot earlier on. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And even when I was a kid, that trend was phasing out because it was only like once or twice in there that they had. But Macy's was also catered to, having not appliances really, but good china, good stuff like that. They catered also to homeware at times. You can get
Yeah.
things you can use in your home as well. So yeah, I think really when it comes to department store, the first one I think of is Macy's. And
Yeah.
because Macy's just has that reputation of
Yeah.
of that. And of course Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade, everybody knows
Mhm.
that. And of course historically Macy's did have a lot more. They're not just a clothing store now, but that's their main draw I think is
Yeah.
clothing, especially high-end clothing.
I
So
was
like
gonna say when I was younger, the idea of J.C. Penney's and or J.C. Penney and Macy's, J.C. Penney definitely was more for the middle class family, and
yes,
I didn't go to Macy's until I was like a teenager, and that was even just
same.
to browse, just
Mhm.
because of how expensive things were. Everything was
Yep.
expensive there.
Exactly. Like even Dillard's is considered kind of in the middle ground as well compared to
Dillard's is still
Macy's.
expensive
I
though
mean,
too, but
Dillard's is
not
still
as
expensive, don't get me
yeah.
wrong, but like I mean, but again,
But
because these
Macy's
stores
was like the top tier
yeah, because
of
Dillard
department.
I hate to put it this way because Dillard's is still a good store, but it's almost like a stripped down version of Macy's in a sense.
I
But
would
it's
agree.
not. But it
I would agree.
but at the same time, Dillard's is still a great place because we have a Dillard's up here.
Yeah.
They're still open. They're the only place I can literally go and get reliable stuff. So shout
Yeah.
out to Dillard's,
Yeah.
and shout out to
Seriously.
Macy's. But it's just I don't have a Macy's up here, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But my overcoat that I have right now was ordered online from Macy's actually, and it's
Really.
because I wanted something when I wear a dress jacket that I can throw over my coat,
Yeah.
and stuff. So I remember when I got an overcoat, which is I still wear to this day. It's really warm. I'm kind of outgrowing it now a little bit, but I mean I still wear it.
Yeah.
But it was ordered from Macy's, and they came through and they had what I was looking for. So, the thing about Macy's though also I think is just they have just they kind of invented what the department store is today, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They kind of modernized that because I mean you have places like Montgomery Ward, Sears and Roebuck, and all those, and yes, they started it and everything, but really Macy's modernized it, and so
Mm,
that's what I appreciate them for.
Macy's made the act of shopping classy. You know,
Absolutely, they
it
made
made it classy.
they made it classy for sure. So definitely a lot of good memories at Macy's, but yeah, those are really the only places that I have that come to mind because the last one I had also was Walden, which we touched upon,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm really glad that we were able to touch upon that. So with keeping the ball rolling, I think we can now get into some munchies and we can start talking about the iconic stop and the place that always kept you going. And even if you couldn't afford anything in the stores, I'm sure you would shed a dollar or two to get something at the food court.
Oh yeah. I mean, if it wasn't a vending machine, it was one of the go-to spots that unfortunately many of them don't exist. But or at least in the malls that I live in or that I live close to, but dang, these brought some good memories. Now I don't know if you wanted to start off Jonathan or if you want me to start off, whatever you want.
I'll start if you're okay with that,
Yeah,
because I've
please,
only
by
got
all
two,
means.
honestly. I've only
By
got
all
two.
means.
So the only two that I have here are Orange Julius, which in some malls still exists, but
I had that too. How funny.
we had an Orange Julius as well at one time, in the Flag Mall. It's over close to where the Bath and Body Works is now. It was right up against that wall. That's
Oh
where Orange
yeah,
Julius
okay.
was.
So yeah, super
Um,
close to the food mart or
yeah,
the food
exactly,
court. Yeah.
exactly. And then the second one was Sbarro, which was a pizza
Oh
joint.
my gosh, I had that
Oh,
too.
Sbarro was low key the best place to go get a slice of pizza in the mall. And it was cheap. That's the thing I
Oh
loved about
yeah.
it.
Oh
And
well, do you remember the slices were like this big?
uh-huh.
Oh yeah, people.
Uh-huh.
The
Yeah,
pizza slices
absolutely.
were like this big, and as a kid, that's an entire pizza.
Exactly. And like that would fill me up. And I cannot tell you how many times I was browsing GameStop or one of those stores with a whole pizza in my face
Oh
because of
yeah.
how much I loved Sbarro. And
Oh yeah.
Sbarro was, just one of those places. It's iconic. It's synonymous with malls. And I'm sad I don't see a lot of them anymore.
Yeah.
From what I understand, I think it is still a thing, but I just don't see Sbarro a lot anymore. But Sbarro was it. My mom would often, we'd split pizza sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes my dad did a class once in Shiprock, New Mexico, and Farmington, which is just right close by, right outside of Shiprock. Basically the main city around that area, we'd go to the mall, we get a thing of Sbarro, and we go play mini golf. That was our thing because
Oh,
my
that's
dad being class.
awesome.
So Sbarro was definitely a big part. But when I came back to Flag, obviously Sbarro became big because I would go to Sbarro and I get a few slices of pizza, and then I'd be while I'm walking around the store just eating like a pig.
That's funny. That's
But
funny.
yeah.
And I'm embarrassed to say, but I've always, even to this day, up until now, and up until I actually hear it
Mhm.
pronounced correctly, I always pronounce it Esbaro. How
I, I
funny.
I I
I
never knew
am
how to.
so
I
embarrassed.
used to be like Sabaro, Sabar, this and
Yeah.
this, and then one time my mom asked, "How do you pronounce the name of this place?" And they said it's Sabaro, and I was like,
I'm
"Okay."
gonna now pronounce it correctly because what the heck? How have I been going my entire life calling it Esbaro?
Sabaro, there you go. Yeah, Sabaro, definitely a great place. But honorable mention I got to give real quick, Pretzel Maker. Um, almost
Oh,
every
okay.
mall had pretzel shops and whatnot, but
Oh yeah.
I am a massive pretzel hound. I can't have pretzels right now, unfortunately, because it is actually the holiday of Passover, and I cannot have any kind of bread of any kind. So also a quick shout out to any Jewish listeners that are celebrating Passover right now. Yeah, but Pretzel Maker was definitely one of my favorites because I'm a huge fan of pretzels, and oftentimes after I'd have my Sbarro, I'd get treated to a pretzel. So
Oh,
that was
very nice.
one of the
Very
coolest
nice.
places. But I believe that is all I really have when it comes to the food because here's the thing, I didn't eat often in in the food markets because oftentimes I prefer to go to another place nearby like Wendy's or McDonald's or something like that. Something that usually wasn't in a mall, but like if I was in the mall, I often was either at Sbarro or Pretzel Maker. So,
No, that's fair. That's
yeah.
fair. I mentioned a couple, actually, I think I mentioned last episode that my mother is a cinephile.
Yep.
Means she loves movies and everything cinema. So
As
we
we
were
are.
at
Mhm.
the mall food court at
Yep.
least twice a week.
Okay.
And that was apart from the time I would spend with a friend or two at the mall. So I was
Oh,
always
okay.
at the mall food court,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
munching and eating. That's
Mm.
one of the reasons why I wore husky pants as a child because I ate too much, and the
It's
mall food
okay.
court
It's
did
okay.
not help with that.
I feel you. I feel you 100%. No,
Uh,
absolutely.
but it's funny that you mentioned pretzel maker because my pretzel go-to place was Wetzel's Pretzels.
Oh, I
I
remember Wetzel's
love
pretzels as
Wetzel's
well.
Pretzels.
Yeah.
It was one of those places where you get a nice cold lemonade with a pepperoni covered pretzel, and then on the side you'd have like cinnamon pretzels or something like that. You know,
Uh,
um, I usually ate Wetzel's pretzels with friends right before we went to go see a movie. So
oh
we
yeah.
would stop by, talk, chat in the food court, grab some Wetzel's pretzels, grab some Jamba Juice, hide it in our pants, and go up into the movie theater because they didn't allow
I
outside food in the
remember.
movie theaters.
You
So
are clever, I have to say, because I would
yeah,
not have thought to do that. You are clever, my
we would
friend.
hide our things in our Catholic school uniforms and whatnot.
Oh wow.
Um, but
And
another
oftentimes the movie theaters were connected in malls.
Oh
Oftentimes,
yeah.
I
Well,
rem
the one that I ventured to at a Park Place down in Tucson, it had a mall, or it had a movie theater attached to the mall.
yeah, because I remember even ours had a small movie theater. It only showed two movies, but I mean,
You
granted,
did mention that,
yeah,
yeah.
we
And
did
I
have
believe
one. It
it's
was a
by the
small.
Flaming Walk, right?
It is. It's right in that
Yep.
area by the Flaming Walk. Yes, and Flaming
Yep.
Walk is another place over in many malls, but honorable mention for sure because I didn't eat at Flaming Walk that often.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, the one time I ate at the Flaming Walk in Flagstaff, I got food poisoning, so
I remember you telling me that, so I
I
know
have
now.
not
Know I
ventured
know
back.
to avoid now.
Well, maybe it changed management. That was like 7 or 8 years ago, so
Okay,
who
well
knows?
we'll have to see. Or you just got some bad chicken.
Exactly, exactly. But a
Yeah.
few more honorable mentions on my behalf would be Charlie's Subs. I love Charlie's Subs.
Mm,
Just run of the mill sandwiches. You can get chicken California style. Filled with nacho cheese and bacon. A place that is not good for your arteries.
absolutely.
Another honorable mention, Cinnabon. Oh my
Oh,
gosh, the amount of
Cinnabon, let's
times.
go.
Yep, the amount of times I would just grab a Cinnabon and just sit and watch
Absolutely.
people. And then this actually wasn't attached to a food court,
Okay.
but I thought I'd give it an honorable mention because I don't
Sure.
think they exist anymore. And actually, these are two restaurants: Cece's Pizza, which was a buffet style pizza eatery. Which I loved venturing to after a soccer game. It was the only place that you could get like a pizza with scrambled egg on top or like
Oh, sure.
really weird things. And then Red Robin, yum.
Yum. You beat me to it. Dang it.
With the bottomless fries and the bottomless I think they had like bottomless lemonade or something like that.
Yes, yes.
Yep.
I remember exactly what you're talking about now. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
those were oftentimes very close to malls or around them. Yeah, is
Yeah.
wild.
The Red Robin actually was in the Tucson Mall, which was the main
Really?
mall here for many years, and then it closed down
Oh
recently.
wow. You know,
But usually a Red Robin would be like on the side of the parking lot or something.
oh, for sure. You okay? I'm glad you mentioned Red Robin being in the mall. You know another place we had at one time that's often also in malls as well. Do you remember Ruby Tuesdays?
Oh my gosh, Ruby
Yeah. And often
Tuesdays.
those were in malls. The best. best flippin' burger on the planet
Oh my
was
gosh,
at
tell me
Ruby
about it.
Tuesdays.
One of
Like
the best burgers I had was a
ground.
guacamole burger from Ruby Tuesdays.
Oh my gosh, yeah, Ruby Tuesday. So I'm glad you brought up Red Robin because Red Robin and Ruby Tuesdays were often the two that were in malls.
And they were like in like diner style restaurants,
Yes, you could dine in
very
there.
dark brick, they
It's kind
had
of like
red
American
booths.
Joe's as well, yeah.
I don't think I've ever been to American Joe's
I've
actually.
never been either, but I've just seen a lot of them in different malls. I'm just
I
using it
see.
as an example, basically.
Gotcha,
Yep.
gotcha.
Oh, sorry, good,
Um,
please.
did you ever go to Johnny Rockets?
I've never been to a Johnny
Oh,
Rockets,
that was a great
unfortunately.
place too. It reminds me of Red Robin, but it's more diner-esque. So
Okay.
you have like malt shakes and burgers and
Rain
pizza and stuff.
Rainbow Cafe is another one. We
Rainbow
never had one,
Cafe.
but there was one at the Arizona Mills that used to
Really?
exist. There was a
Okay.
Rainbow Cafe there. I never ate in it, but I just remember a bunch of kids when they would get scared because some of the animals were animatronic and they could make the
Oh my
sounds.
gosh. Are you talking about Rainforest Cafe?
Rainforest.
There
Thank
we
you.
go. Yeah, I've been to a rainforest. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Rainforest Cafe. I'm sorry. What did I say?
No, no, rainbow.
Rainbow Cafe. Wow.
So,
Wow.
for those of you who aren't familiar with Rainforest Cafe, it's exactly that. It's sort of this animatronic version of a rainforest, and like every 5 minutes, you hear like thunder and like rain
It is an
and
experience.
animals in the background. It was an experience. From what I remember, it was a pretty penny too, and it was always booked. But I think the novelty has since then, subsided, given how annoying it
Mm.
actually is to
I
hear every five
Yep,
minutes while you're trying to
exactly.
enjoy a meal.
I think the only reason I know of American Joe's and Rainforest Cafe is because of the movie Paul Blart Mall Cop. That's
Oh
really
my
the only reason
god.
I know of those two.
Why was I going to bring up Mall Cop earlier in the episode when we were
Because we were
talking
going to
about
talk about
how big
malls.
malls? Well, that's how big malls have been a part of our pop culture in the United States, at least.
Yeah.
That we even have movies based on the security at malls.
Yeah, and to tell you the truth, most of them were really chill, I got to be honest with you. I don't think I've ever really ran in, except maybe in the modern day, to a lot of mall security guards that were, really, kind of mean, gruff or anything. I think the
Mm,
majority of them were
mhm.
really friendly, really cool, and just really awesome, I think it's just one of those things. So, the movie definitely lived up to that because,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you had those that still were kind of cranky, whatnot, but like I remember I got lost in a mall one time. I went to the security desk and they were really chill. They were, making sure I was okay. I think the guy gave me a lollipop, make sure I felt good, and then he called over the mall's thing, and then of course my mom came and found me.
Yeah, yeah. I have never had any run-ins with mall security, but from what I've seen, they definitely have to deal with a lot.
Yeah, they do. And I'm just saying I can only speak from my experiences. I'm sure there's plenty of other people that have different experiences, but yeah, I can only speak for mine. But oh my goodness, I can't believe just how big of an experience it was to go to a mall or to
Oh,
go to a department store. And it
absolutely.
wasn't it wasn't just going to shop for something, it was immersing yourself in a whole new world.
Undoubtedly. Absolutely. I mean, you absorbed
Oh
every
yeah.
little thing, whether it be the smells, the music that
Yeah,
they were playing, every little thing. And
absolutely.
now that's to see a mall thriving is rare,
It is.
unfortunately.
It is absolutely.
And that is a perfect transition to one of my favorite segments in our podcast.
Yep.
One which I hope that you guys also get a kick out of, whether it be being informed for the first time of a fun fact or twisting your mind a little bit with our trivia. But it is that time of day right now where we are going to be doing fun facts and trivia. And I will start off with five fun facts.
Let's hear it.
And it's all relevant to the theme of today's episode.
Absolutely. Let's hear it.
So, there's a place called The Ground Round, which is a comfort food restaurant. And it was really popular in the US because it allowed you to toss the peanut shells that you were given, the complimentary peanut shells that you were given. You were able to toss it on the floor, and it made it an iconic and quirky place to eat and be laid back and to hang out.
Yep.
As of, I believe, COVID, Texas Roadhouse actually implemented that to where you can throw the peanut shells on the floor,
Yeah.
sort of giving it a very homey country style vibe. But unfortunately, due to the pandemic, they had to end that. So I'm wondering if the ground round still exists, and if it does, if they still do the peanut shell toss on the floor.
That's a good question because now with Texas Roadhouse, they have a bucket that they ask you to put them in. So
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Now, my second fun fact, I've actually never ventured to this store, but Jonathan has alluded to it in the past when talking about the resurgence of
All right.
vinyl and old media, and it is Sam Goody. It was a
Let's
mall
go.
staple for music lovers, offering everything from cassette tapes to CDs and vinyl before streaming took over. Let us know if you guys have been to a Sam Goody or if you
Yes,
guys grew up
please do.
going to Sam Goody.
Please do. Absolutely.
And my third is Woolworths. It was one of the first five and dime stores known for its soda fountains. Think back to 50s diners, guys, where
Wow.
kids could grab a malt or an ice cream sundae for just like 50 cents or something like that. Bring that back, please. My wallet needs it.
Please.
And
Please do.
fourth, fun fact, Fuddruckers. I've never been, but I
Ah,
drove by
Fuddruckers.
them. I've driven by them pretty much my entire life up
Sure.
until their closures here in Tucson. But they offer to build your own burger bar. That is so
Oh, that's
awesome.
sick.
You could basically load up your burger with all the fixings, and it became a trend, I guess. I do regret never having gone there because that actually
Wow.
sounds right up my alley. But that's pretty cool. Let us know if you
That
guys
is
have
cool.
spent time in a Fuddruckers. I know that they had a pretty cool arcade too. So,
Oh yeah, I've heard stories of Fuddruckers. I've never been in one either, but I would definitely like to learn more about Fuddruckers because it's
me
it's a really
too.
cool place for sure.
Yeah, and then the
Absolutely.
A&W store slash restaurant pioneered the root beer float,
Yup.
combining ice cream with their signature root beer for a classic American treat. And for those of you who are not familiar, A&W is in my opinion, leading and one of the best root beer brands out there.
I hear
So
you there
if you're
for
behind
sure.
on that, definitely try it out. But that actually concludes my fun facts.
Very cool. When it comes to root beer, I'm more an IBC guy myself, but A&W is definitely out there. Just had to
Oh
put that
yeah,
out there.
IBC's good. Yeah,
But IBC is
Bargs is
definitely
good too.
okay. There you go. Yep, another good one. Lots of good brands of good soda. But anyways, I got some fun facts for you. I've only got four, and most of them revolve around Walmart, so I do apologize about that. But
No, lay him on me.
okay, so the first one is Sam Walton is the person who founded Walmart, opened Walmart in 1962, originally named Walmart Discount City, as the idea was to offer goods at a discounted rate. And even though it's not as discounted as it used to be, it is to this day the world's largest retailer. So take it that. I mean, Walmart is still going strong. They're still good. Just changed a little over the years is all I gotta say. But
Oh yeah,
but pretty good
Walmart
still.
Discount City. Wow.
Yep. So
Okay,
that was
that's a
the full
mouthful.
name. Yeah, that was the full name of Walmart back in the day.
That's a mouthful.
Mhm. And then the second one is Sam Walton also was the founder of Sam's Club. Now, Sam's Club is almost a warehouse style store similar to Costco. So it's more of a West Coast thing, I believe. Although I do believe Sam's Clubs are kind of throughout the country, but he founded Sam's Club, which is why the Members Mark brand is often sold at both Sam's and Walmart. And Sam's was founded later in the 1980s, so it was more of a competitor to places like Costco for sure,
Oh
and
yeah.
places where you can buy in bulk. Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and that was the whole point of stores like that. So definitely really interesting to see now why they're so closely linked, both Walmart and Sam's.
Oh well, people will die on both of those hills that Costco's better, that Sam's Club is better. But
Oh
let's
sure,
let's let's give our hats off and some appreciation to Walmart where it all began, really.
absolutely, absolutely for sure. And then number three is the world's largest Walmart is located in Albany, New York at the Crossgate Commons. This Walmart is so big, it has two stories with escalators and also an escalator for your cart. I'm not even joking. They have an escalator you can put your cart on. You go on the main escalator, and your cart rides up the other escalator, and then you just grab your cart and you
Now,
continue
the
shopping.
only time I've ever seen that is actually at the Target at the Grove in LA. But the fact that there's a Walmart that is pretty much one of the biggest department stores in the country, I would
Hmm.
say, that has that, that's amazing.
I have to send you some pictures of that place because that place is
Please
wild.
do.
That place is
Please
wild
do.
for sure. And
Now,
then
that's
my
somewhere you don't want to get lost in.
No, I really hope they have some good security there and some good
Yeah.
people that can help because yeah, you do not want to get lost in a store that big.
No.
And then the last one I have is the largest mall in the United States is the Mall of America, located in Bloomington, Minnesota, which includes not only stores and a food court, but an aquarium, an indoor theme park, and a mini golfing lawn. So
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy. I've always wanted to go to the Mall of America, so might have to be a road trip, Ramona.
Heck yeah.
Maybe
I
an
also want to
extension
go
of the
to,
show.
I don't know if it's in like Singapore. It could even be in Dubai,
Mhm.
but there's a mall and I think it's the biggest in the world and they have a ski slope in it. A
In the
ski
actual
slope
mall.
in the mall. Yeah, if you want to go skiing, you can go to the mall. Yeah. Tell me about it.
That's wild.
Right? Right.
That
There
is
there should be an
wild.
episode where we just visit all the biggest malls in the world.
For real, I hear that. We should definitely do that. But anyways, I think now it is time for trivia.
Let's do
And
it.
I hope you don't mind if I go first this time, my
Please,
friend.
please.
Not that I'm trying to cut you off or anything, but
No, no, no,
I've
please.
only got three, but let's do this and we'll let everybody else get a chance to answer as well out there. So the first one that I have is what popular fast food chain started as a mall only food court restaurant? And this is a big one, and I don't know if it's going to throw you for a loop, but it is one of the most popular fast food places in the country. So don't think too
Okay.
hard.
Okay. So I know for a fact that McDonald's and Burger King had their own little shops.
Yes, they were individualized. Yep. It's a place that's
So
still popular to this day.
it's still popular to this day. Uh,
Extremely popular, if I may
would
say
it,
so.
okay, so this is a really bad guess,
Okay.
mostly because I just feel so detached from what mall food courts are because
Okay.
unfortunately the food courts at my malls are pretty much irrelevant they're just like not popular restaurants and stuff.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm gonna have to dive deep into my memory. I'm gonna have
Go
to
ahead.
say something like Panda Express.
No, unfortunately not, but it is a
Okay.
place I know you're gonna
Oh,
be
I'm
so
gonna
shocked.
kick myself for
You're gonna
this.
kick
Trust me.
yourself when you hear this. Are you ready
Yeah,
for
yeah.
this? It
Please
is
tell me.
Chick-fil-A.
No way.
It's Chick-fil-A. Yeah,
No
Chick-fil-A
way.
started as a mall only place.
Wow.
So
That blows
Chick-fil-A
my
was
mind.
Chick-fil-A in the 19 began like I think in the 1960s or so. You could only go to a Chick-fil-A if you went to a mall. And that's why
Whoa.
if you look for old Chick-fil-A advertising, it's always in a mall. There's this one from the 80s where it's like dining, shopping in the mall, doing this and this and this, and this girl's trying on her wedding dress and everything. And at the very end, and now you come to eat something and you come to Chick-fil-A today. I'm like, oh, let's go. So Chick-fil-A
Wow.
was a mall only place until 1994 when they started to franchise into their own restaurants because of how popular they became.
That makes sense because in in my memory, and obviously it could be flawed, the first Chick-fil-A that opened in Tucson was like 2005 and it had its own storefront. It had
Yeah.
its own brick and mortar.
Yeah.
So I had just assumed that that's just how it was. How
No.
funny.
Yeah, yeah.
How
I knew you
funny.
were gonna be shocked when you heard the answer.
No, I mean that could nothing could have prepared me for that answer.
Absolutely,
Really nothing.
for sure. And then my second one is what year did Walmart go public? As in, what year were they listed on the New York Stock Exchange?
Oh geez. I mean, there's no way I can get this right, but
It's
I'm gonna
okay.
say 83.
1972.
72. Okay,
It was the
wow.
year that they were
Okay.
listed on the New York Stock Exchange as WNT. It's still what they're listed as. And they had 51 stores and a record sale of the time of 78 million.
Wow. Now, remind me again, I don't know if you honestly, I can't remember if you mentioned a specific date of when that Sam gentleman, uh,
Sam Walton,
uh, Sam Walton. There you go. He opened the first Walmart. Do you know how long ago Walmart was opened?
1962.
62. Okay, so it took about 10 years
Took
for
about
him to
10
be
years to get it
established and
to get established and
franchised.
then to go public. Yeah, get franchised and then go
Wow.
public. Yep,
I guess I
exactly.
just didn't realize how old Walmart really was.
Oh wow, yep, absolutely. It's wild, isn't it, to think
Yeah, oh,
about that.
completely.
But the last one that I have, and this is one we've talked about, so I want to see if you can get this one, because we talked about this store actually in great length throughout this episode. Along with Montgomery Ward, which company became their biggest competitor?
Honestly, I think it's Macy's, but I maybe Sears, but I just think Macy's was a lot bigger.
You just said it.
So it's Sears?
It's Sears.
Oh, dang it. Okay, okay, okay.
No, you were
How
close though,
funny.
because Macy's was around that time. William H. Macy founding Macy's was, yeah,
Yeah.
it was around that corner. But no, Sears and Roebuck beat him to it
Really?
because they had
Okay.
their first mail-in catalog. Whereas I don't know if Macy's was ever a catalog, to be honest with you, because
Oh,
Montgomery
okay.
Ward and Sears both began as mail-in catalogs, meaning they would travel from town to town and they would sell their stuff, and then they would hand their catalog, and then they said you could order out of that
Wow.
catalog.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Sears and Roebuck, which was
Sears.
founded in 1886, offered
Oh,
mail catalogs to offer their goods and services. Both evolved into successful department stores, and sadly, both do not exist anymore, in at least in physical form.
I'm sorry. Did you say 1886?
Was when Sears, yes. Isn't that
1886?
wild? Isn't that wild?
What?
Sears, and that's when Sears was founded. And this
That's
is
my brain right
Montgomery
now.
Ward goes back even further.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
So
here
yeah.
I thought the world revolved around my little scope of life and everything was
I knew
opened in
this was gonna throw you for
1996
a
when I was
loop, so I
born.
definitely had to do that.
Wow.
So yeah,
That's insane.
so Sears is mostly online now. They don't really have any stores anymore, sadly. But hey, you never know. Maybe we could see a return if we get the right people in there.
You know, if anything is backed by money and popularity, it'll make a resurgence,
For sure.
as we've seen.
Absolutely. All right, my friend, what you got for me?
All right, I'm ready to blow your
Yes,
mind. All
blow
right.
my mind.
So I have 5 questions. All right.
Okay, let's
So
do
the
this.
first one is, which department store, once a staple in American malls, was known for its distinctive blue and white striped bags and the famous slogan, Where America Shops?
Where
Now,
America shops. I feel like I
we
should
we
know
just
this.
said the answer too, like
Sears?
not even. Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
it's Sears. Yeah, it's got to be
Where
Sears.
America Shops. Wow, I didn't realize how much of a staple Sears was to consumerism in from like the 60s on. That's really crazy.
Yep, exactly. It's wild, isn't it?
Oh yeah. And that leads me to my second question.
Okay.
In no way correlated. But which 1980s and 1990s mall store, often found in the center court, became iconic for selling sports, memorabilia, jerseys, and logoed apparel?
Ooh.
So think of a big sports store in like the place that people would go, even in the early 2000s. Now the 80s and 90s part of the question sort of it
Ah,
muddles it,
I
makes it a little
think I
bit.
know I
Oh,
think I
I
know the
know you know.
store. I just can't
Actually,
think of the
I don't
name.
I don't know if there was one in Flagstaff though, so
There
I would be
probably
surprised.
was now that I'm thinking of it because we had a sports store and it's where I
Okay.
got a lot of my stuff. It's where I got my Luis Gonzalez Diamondback shirt,
Okay,
and
okay.
Craig Counsell shirt and all that kind of stuff. I forget
So
the exact name, but
so it's the equivalent, and I'm gonna give you a hint, the red equivalent to Dick's Sporting Goods.
the red equivalent. Shoot. Was it called Reds? I don't know. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
no, no.
blanking. I'm
Sports
blanking.
Authority.
That's what I was thinking, but I thought Sports Authority was a new thing. I thought
No,
it was a
no.
new thing.
I did too. Apparently, 80s and
Oh,
90s, it was like the epicenter of the sports,
what is wrong with me? I should have went with my gut because I was
Oh
going to say
my
Sports
gosh.
Authority. What am
Listen
I?
to your gut.
We have one in the mall right now, a Sports Authority.
There's a Sports Authority in the mall right
Something
now?
like that to a degree. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I'll
okay,
take a picture
okay.
of it and show you
Yeah, please
next time
do.
I'm
I
there.
thought they were
Yeah.
all closed. That's crazy.
Oh
No,
my
that
God.
was my go-to for like
How am
soccer
I
cleats.
this?
Oh yeah.
I should have went with my gut. I should have went
Yeah,
with my gut
yeah,
because I
yeah.
was thinking Sports Authority, but when you said red, I don't know why I said Reds. People are gonna be laughing. I know this is gonna go blow
Clip that
up.
chat.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, yeah, I know I got clipped with that one for sure.
All right,
But
let's see if you get this one. And if
okay,
you feel something in your gut, just say it.
okay.
Which iconic and at times controversial mall store, known for its big, bold graphic tees and preppy style, was a favorite hangout spot for teens in the 1990s, often featuring bold logos and colors? Now, I want to emphasize the words, and I want to put an emphasis on the meaning behind this: controversial and preppy. Okay.
I already think I know what this store is,
All
so
right,
I
lay it on
might
me.
just say,
Let's see.
is it Spencer's?
No, no, no. Preppy. Preppy.
What?
No,
It's
remember
not
preppy.
Spencer's.
No, no, no. Spencer's isn't preppy.
They used
Preppy
to be.
style. No, no, no. No.
Okay, I must be
Spencer's
thinking.
never been
Okay,
preppy.
okay,
The
I
fact that
must
they
be
have an adult store literally in the back is the complete opposite of preppy. I'm talking
okay.
about preppy, like California money preppy.
Oh, okay. I thought you were thinking preppy, like as in like gnarly, but okay,
No,
my
no, no,
bad.
no, no. I'm thinking of Abercrombie and Fitch.
Oh, Abercrombie and Fitch.
Hence
Wait,
controversial
why
and
was it
preppy.
controversial then?
So the owner of Abercrombie in the late 2010s was under fire because of his hiring policies. Apparently, they had an
Oh,
unspoken rule saying that they didn't hire overweight people or people of color. And
really?
yes, and in some later interviews with him, he started, I guess, being very vocal about his opinion on body positivity and
Oh
on,
my goodness, race.
plus size things and
Oh
race and whatnot.
man, that's
So
unfortunate. Okay, I
it
see where the
is.
controversy comes. That's so
It
unfortunate.
is.
That's
It
so
is.
unfortunate.
And that's why you don't really see it now in
I can
malls
see. Yeah,
because
I can understand.
they rebranded as a more inclusive brand now that
Okay,
is higher end, I believe. I believe
okay.
if I'm
I don't think
remembering
we ever had
correctly,
one
that's
up here in Flag, so I would not have known the answer to that. My bad. I
honestly,
don't
I
know.
would have been surprised if you had a Abercrombie and Flagstaff.
And to
Did you guys
think,
have a
I'm thinking.
Hollister?
I think we did have a Hollister. Yeah,
Okay.
I think we did, but I can't. I don't think we had an Abercrombie and No, I don't think we had them. I can't believe I think Spencer's, man. Two different
No,
things,
yeah.
man.
No, controversial, you were right, but preppy, no. No, preppy like so for
Oh
those of you
man.
who are on, the younger side of things and don't know what I'm talking about, Abercrombie was like Hollister on steroids. You'd
Yep.
walk by and you would be drowned by this smell of perfume, cologne, just you don't even know what it is. And then you would walk in and there was like
Yep.
house music
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
there would be models everywhere. Like think of the most muscular, skinny people ever on like billboard or on boards and like posters,
All
you
right.
know. And and another controversy that they were under fire for was the fact that I believe they only went up to like a size like 12 in pants for women's.
No
Yeah,
way.
so it was not inclusive in
Wow,
that
that is so
aspect.
sad.
No, but yes, Abercrombie will definitely hold a place in my heart as definitely something that I never got to experience, but I saw a lot of people experience and have a good time with. Controversial as it may be, it's still a staple in a lot of our lives. But to move on with the questions, here's our fourth question, and it is: which department store was famous for its annual Christmas catalog, which featured everything from toys to home goods and became a must-have for families during the holidays? And this is something that we have discussed and that we did discuss earlier in the podcast.
Okay. I gotta think back a little bit just because my brain is not really firing right now on all cylinders. So
Oh, I feel.
I kind of want to think known for its Christmas catalog. I know it's not Sears because we already talked about that.
Mhm.
There's no way. And you said everything from toys to
Home goods.
home goods. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it can't, I don't think it can be Macy's because Macy's didn't really have toys. I don't
Mm-mm.
think. Shoot. It's not JC Penney, I don't think. No.
Oh,
Wait, is it JC Penney? Is it
yeah, it
JC
is.
Penney?
Yeah,
Oh! Oh my goodness. I'm like, wait, is it JC Penney?
it's
Okay.
not the answer, but it is.
Okay. So JC
Uh,
Penney.
yeah, JC
Wow,
Penney. And then
okay.
for the last question, which mall-based fast food chain, famous for its signature pretzels and variety of dips, became a quintessential part of the mall food court experience in the 1990s? Now, I still prefer Wetzel's over this, so that's telling
It's
you that it's
not
not Wetzel's.
it's not Pretzel Maker, right? Is it?
No, it's not.
Okay, I didn't think so.
I think there's they actually they might have opened one up right now in the
Is
Flagstaff
it
Mall.
Aunt something? Aunt Annie's or
Auntie
something?
Anne's.
Auntie Anne's, yeah.
Yep.
Yep, Auntie Anne's.
Auntie
Okay, cool, cool.
Anne's. Yep. And then
Yeah,
that
they do have one
actually
open.
concludes my question. Oh, well, go ahead on Auntie Anne's.
Oh, I just said they do have one here, and I do stop by Auntie Anne's often when I'm in the mall because you know me, I love pretzels.
Oh yeah,
I'm pretzel hound. So anyhow,
yeah,
my friend,
yeah.
wow, really great episode. I think this has probably
Seriously.
been one of our best, and even though it's a bit lengthy, I think this is actually one where we earned it, you know?
Oh yeah.
We definitely had a lot of fun with this one. So, looking back on all these stores, I'm just gonna say this really quick. There's just so much nostalgia around stores, and I hope y'all can get a good idea that these stores were not just, a time where, oh, you had to get off your couch and go to the store and stuff like that. It was an experience, and it was something that we were all here for because they made it fun, they made it outgoing, and really they had something for everyone. And at the end of the day, it's just something that tangible people I think really just wish that, like us, just really wish we had, because then it just goes better with the people we are. But again, we understand the world moves on, you have to keep going and whatnot. But anyhow, this was a really great episode, and I really hope you guys got a little glimpse as to why these places, malls and department stores, are so big to us and to so many people. But with that,
Hmm.
Ramona, I will let you go ahead and take us out. Thank you all so much, folks.
Yes, yes. As we wrap up this nostalgic ride to the iconic department stores, retail chains, and franchises that shaped our childhood, teen years, and even early adulthood, we want to take a moment to honor the ones that we've lost and give a nod to those that have managed to stick around, because we know that
Yes.
that's hard in this day and age of convenience and online shopping. I wanted to thank you all, especially our nostalgic listeners, for joining us on this episode of Rewind Room. We're
Yes.
excited for what's to come on the podcast, and we can't wait to keep this trip down memory lane going. It's just one of those things that it's just going to continue, and a lot of it is backed by your guys' support. So we appreciate that. Make sure, if you're on YouTube, to like, subscribe, and to turn on that little bell notification, just so that you can be notified every time we post, which is the first Friday of every month. And that'll soon be changing to bi-monthly pretty soon, I believe. You
I
can
hope
find us,
so.
yeah, fingers crossed. You
Yes.
can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, be that Spotify, Apple, Audible, Amazon Music, wherever. Pretty much, we are pretty much everywhere, honestly.
Absolutely.
But this concludes today's episode. And as we always do, my friend, I'm Ramona,
My name is John.
and we will catch you on the rewind.
We will catch you on the rewind, folks. Take care and have a blessed day.